Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 117, part B. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I am Sean Whalen, Dr. Norge on the comic forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. Sean, I thought we weren't going to do multi-parters anymore, so says the sensei of the Whatnot segment.
How's it going, eh?
Yeah.
I thought you said no A, B, C, D. No. We're not going to do that anymore, Sean. And I just sat back here laughing, going, I knew it was going to happen eventually. It only took, what, 4 episodes?
No, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Back in the 60s, we did all those.
Okay.
We haven't done any part B's and A's and B's in a long time.
Okay.
So you're wrong there. Yeah. Part of the reason why is we looked at this recording, we were getting into 4-hour plus territory, which I really, unless the shows are connected where there's a reason why, when Jim and I recorded, we recorded the 4-hour show with connecting threads where we talked about previous things, there's a natural split here. So we actually decided to release this as a two-parter. Episode, if you didn't listen to it, episode 117A featured our Last Son conversation, where we had also an audio comment from Darth Dad from the Fanboy Face-Off podcast. On this second part, we're not going to do any openings in this particular part because we already did that on 117A. We're going to jump right in and have a discussion with Kendra Behn Smith, who joined us from the Emerald City Comiccon, which was the site of the first ever DC Nation panel for them. And she talked about that, what that experience was like, a little bit about what that convention is like. And we also had a nice talk about all-ages comic book material and how we can bridge that all-ages gap into the new material today. We talked about paper comics versus digital comics and the whole future of the comics industry, and is there really a need to battle it out between those things. And we also have some more New York Comic Con commentary and things like that that are going to be going on this episode, so lots of stuff. So this is a second episode that you get this week from us, because we just had way too much content. Jim, what kind of podcast are we?
Well, we are a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth in the plot lines, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're reviewing. So if we're going over something you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Yeah. I don't know that we spoiled anything directly on this particular segment, but I know in some of the New York Comic Con stuff we were geeking out about some favorite comics of listeners, so there's probably going to be some stuff on there that maybe might be a little bit spoiled. But anyway, let's go ahead and get right into the show with Kendra Behn Smith. You're joining us because of the Emerald City Comiccon. Can you tell us a little bit, you said this is your second time at the Emerald City Comiccon?
Yes.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about the Emerald City Comiccon. What, how big is it? Give us kind of a feel for what that's like.
Well, like I said, it's the only Comic-Con I've ever been to. I don't think it's a huge one. It runs 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, and it's very eclectic. It's not just comic books. They had a lot of media guests from outside comic book, Battlestar Galactica, Angel. Will Wheaton was there from Star Trek.
Next Generation, yeah.
Next Generation, yeah. He was awesome. He also found out he does voices for 2 of the DC Saturday morning cartoons, which I didn't know.
Is it Legion that he was involved in?
He is. He's Cosmic Boy on Legion.
Oh, cool.
And he was Aqualad in Teen Titans.
Oh, very nice.
Oh, man.
Yeah. As soon as he said that, my daughter's eyes just lit up. Really?
Well, I'm from Smallville. Michael Rosenbaum.
She canceled. The Smallville girl canceled.
Michael Rosenbaum from Smallville, though, I guess he does an awful lot of voiceovers for cartoons. So.
All right.
That seems to be a big thing for Hollywood now, is a lot of animation voiceover, not just in television but in film as well. They're going to a lot of your big name.
We were renting the Justice League International. And I'd always have to watch the credits because some of these minor characters, like, I know that voice. Who is that? And they had all sorts of people who did some of the smaller characters that only appear once or twice in Justice League International. Unlimited.
Is the Emerald City Comic-Con like an exhibition con where there's lots of like displays and things like that? Or is it a shopping con where there's lots of vendors? Or is it like a kind of a mixture of the two?
It's a mixture. The front part is vendors primarily. And some of the publishing companies come, because Dark Horse is just down in Portland. Okay. And so they usually come up, and they have a big table, and some of the other smaller independent companies come up. And then you have all the stores. My local comic shop was there. And so, stopped by and saw them. But lots of back issues, T-shirts, memorabilia, all that sort of stuff. And then the back is all the creators. And so tables of artists and writers and anybody you could possibly, want to see, or with any kind of talent you would want. The big line of the day was Ed Brubaker from X-Men. I mean, huge line. Every time we walked past here, his line was, down the table and around the corner and towards the door. And
he's doing Captain America too, and he was big runs on Batman and Gotham Central over at DC.
Oh, well, there you go. So, yeah, lots and lots of people waiting to see him. And then starting about noon, they have the panel discussions, and they run about every hour on the hour from noon to 5 both days. And some of those, we had DC Nation. We had DC Nation for the very first time in Seattle.
Very nice.
Oh,
very
cool.
exciting. Yes. Oh, and Jim?
Yes.
The cover artist for Countdown was Stéphane Roux. He's French, and he was there.
Yeah.
Were you one of the people that did this? Did you do Stephanie Roux on the show?
Of course not. Of course I didn't. I knew exactly.
Well, did he do something in Emerald City about his name?
He didn't. He just kind of sat at the panel and waved when they said his name.
Because he in New York, he did a big deal where he wore a T-shirt. I am not Stephanie Roux. And I thought, but it was.
I'm behind on the podcast, so I don't know if you guys. I haven't listened to the New York one yet.
Yeah, that was he did it at the. You'll hear it on the DC Nation panel from New York. It's actually on their podcast.
All right.
And he was a really good sport about it. He was very funny. He's doing all of the villain art pieces that you're seeing right now in the various issues.
Oh, yeah, yes.
And they're gorgeous.
They are. They went on and on about him and how wonderful his art was, and they also said at the panel to take up Final Crisis Revelation because Philip Tan's art is one of the best things they have seen in years.
And that's the Spectre miniseries that's going to be coming out.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Which is, that's the one that's finally supposed to take Crispus and resolve his relationship with the Spectre, because they've had this kind of, they're battling it out. Crispus hasn't wanted to accept his role as the host for the Spectre, and hasn't quite fully, and I guess this is going to be the one where we finally see the connection between the two, where we finally see the resolution of that relationship. And a perfect time, too, with a crisis looming. The Spectre usually plays a very big role. In Crisis on Infinite Earths, I mean, the Spectre was huge and monumental.
Oh, yeah.
In that, so
Oh, absolutely.
I'm glad to finally see that.
So, so pick up that one. And I think Greg Rucka's writing that
Absolutely.
one. So, yay. And he has nothing but fabulous things to say about Philip Tan.
What else came out of that panel?
Big announcement, Joe Straczynski's taking on Brave and the Bold.
I'm excited about that. That's
Yeah.
you know him.
I am too.
Babylon 5.
Yeah.
I actually,
Yeah.
I only read the first year of his run on Spider-Man. And I didn't drop it because I wasn't enjoying it. It was just a matter of, we started getting into, I started getting into more and more DC books, and I was, at a pull list that was insane. So I ended up purging some stuff like that. But I was enjoying what I was reading, but I really loved his stuff from Top Cow that he was doing over there. Midnight Nation was a 12-issue series that I thought was really, really great over there. And I'm drawing a blank right now on the other series that he did over there. He did a series that was kind of like a an Astro City, Kingdom Come-ish kind of thing, and I'm drawing a blank on it at the moment. But I like his writing.
They held DC Brave and Bold up as one of the comics that if you're new to comics, this is a place to start, because it's kind of independent of everything else that's going on, and they're all going to be 1 or 2 shots. It's not going to be these arcing storylines like we've had the last several months.
Okay. Kind of like what Jonah Hex does, where it's kind of an easy book that, you can pick up Brave and the Bold at any point in time and not feel like... Well, Brave and the Bold was always like that. The original series was always like that.
Yeah. And he gave us, I think it was 9 pair-ups, and I didn't scribble all of them down. Some of the more interesting ones that I did scribble down were Constantine Eclipso.
Mm.
I know. Legion of Substitute Heroes in the Inferior 5, which just sounds hysterical.
Wow.
And my favorite one, Lex Luthor Swamp Thing.
Oh, man.
So he's looking like he's going to have a lot of fun with this.
Yeah. Yes. He talked about being able to play on DC's playground and just pick and choose from where he wanted to go with it.
See, I don't
So
know
it
if
should be a lot of fun.
I don't know if a series like that needs to be in continuity.
I know.
I mean, to me, it's kind of... I enjoy in-continuity books a great deal. But every so often, it's nice to have a series where they're just playing and having fun with the characters and concepts, but they're true to them. And I have a funny feeling this is all going to be about, like, I mean, he's pulling things that are from the DC mythos.
Yes.
And clearly they're going to be things that are true to those characters, but you don't have to get stuck with, oh, does it fit into this point in time in continuity? We can just kind of have some fun with the stories. That, to me, is what that was always. Marvel Team Up, the original Marvel Team Up series was always like that. That's half the fun of those books, is it's a great way to get to know characters that you've never seen before.
Yeah. A funny one that he's got Superman and Sergeant Rock, and it's hysterical because I have in a box somewhere an old from the 70s Superman Sergeant Rock's DC Comics Presents, where Superman gets sent back in time and gets amnesia and ends up in World War II.
See, that's the kind of storytelling I want out of these. But, I mean, you can set them today with today's type of storytelling and everything like that, so there's a whole reason to do this whole new series and kind of modernize it and have fun with it. But I like the 1 and 2 offs because I think this is going to be great.
I do, too. I'm really excited about this. I was very disappointed when Wade and Perez left because it's like the dynamic duo. I mean, it's like super team for me for creativity. But this is going to be good, I think. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, the nice thing about the Wade and Perez run, though, is at least that one's going to be bookended. You know, where when that's done, anybody who is enjoying that run is going to have a complete story from that. They're going to have a complete run.
Yep.
You know, and this is basically a Brave and the Bold 2.0. You know, it's just a different imagining of that. And I prefer it this way rather than him having to continue what Wade and Perez were doing.
Yeah.
Because I think the problem there is if you try to do that, it's going to wind up coming off as a watered-down version of what those guys were doing, because what they did was great. And let's do something a little bit different that's going to play up to this writer's strengths. And I think, at this point, I'm ready for a Brave and the Bold that kind of plays off the original concept.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Only a wider concept, because eventually it was Brave and Bold, who's going to star with Batman?
Mm-hmm.
And this is really a wider, let's pull everybody and anybody we can in and see what happens.
And that's half the, because some of those pairings sound awesome.
I know. Oh, here's Batman and Dial H for Hero. I'm just kind of trying to translate my notes.
Because there's a lot of characters in the DC universe that aren't being used at all right now.
Yeah.
And that probably won't appear anytime soon just because they don't fit into the direction that the company's going. But this is a great chance to kind of bring those characters back, get nostalgic. And
well, like they just did Superman and Shining Knight. It's like, Shining Knight. No, Silent Night, that's what it was. Superman and Silent Night. It's like, Silent Night? Did I even know he existed anymore?
Right.
Yeah, that was a neat thing where they brought him back and showed why Clark had to go back and why Clark had to help him out. You know, the whole time you're reading, like, hey, this is a cool story. Then you get to the end, you're like, oh, nice. It's
very cool. So I'm hoping it's going to be more of that sort of thing, where the reasons these odd characters are coming together makes sense. It's not just throwing people together because, you know, people want to see them.
Do you guys
that can work too.
Do you guys have a dream team up that you would like to see? I know that's kind of I'm putting you on the spot.
Putting on the spot.
I'm putting myself on the spot too because I'm like trying to think. Is there any team ups that
my favorite obscure DC character? You know, it goes back to the fact that I started reading comics is, you know, a little girl is Amethyst, Princess of Gemworld. If they could figure out how to pair her with anybody, I would be delighted.
And honestly, with some of the fantasy characters that came out of Seven Soldiers, even.
Yeah.
There would be definitely a way to bring her in and kind of pair her up with those characters. She would fit nicely with some of those characters that Morrison crafted.
She would.
Like Clarion.
And I actually asked Mark Waid at the panel last year. He said, nope, no plans for her.
I would say Hawkman and anybody.
Yeah. Come on, we kind of saw that one coming.
Surprise.
Whoa, I'm going to have a heart attack and die from that surprise.
It's a little shocking. It's a leap for me.
You want to see Hawkman?
You know what?
Hold on.
I'll say this. Hang on. Just to... Hawkman Amethyst.
that could work. That could really work.
Dude, you want Hawkman teaming up with Hawkman from another Earth is what you want. That's what you want, the stereo of Hawkman just beating up on people.
You know what the problem with that would be? It's too much goodness in one book. It'd be like scary.
The 52 Universe Special. All Hawkman, all the time.
Well, I would say my dream team that I would like to actually see is Misfit, Cyclone from JSA.
Oh, yeah.
I think those two together would put together probably one of the funniest episodes ever. Or
that
issues.
Would be hysterical.
Episodes.
Yeah. And those are two characters that would be a lot of fun to see together.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a fun. I think it's gonna be a fun book. You know what I like? I like when I'm surprised by pairings they put together. When it's something I didn't expect, and yet they make it. It like when you look at it, you're kind of like, what the? But then when you read the issue, it in some way it takes both sets of character or both characters, if it's a team or if it's single characters, it somehow takes both of them and you understand their concepts so much more because they have to get their head around exactly what we're talking about. They don't normally match. They're odd match pairs. And because you get to see each character from the perspective of the mismatch, you actually learn so much more about those two characters than you could have ever possibly imagined learning about them. And you enjoy them.
It makes you want to go find out about the characters.
Yeah, exactly.
I've never heard of this person, but wow, this is interesting. Where can I find more?
So, what other announcements did they have out of there? Because I know that was. I'm thrilled for you guys because it seemed like that panel was really one for just a lot of news.
It was. Well, we got to ask questions. It was basically a Q&A panel. And DiDio had his little keeper there, so you're not allowed to answer that question, which was very funny. And he actually would bounce down from the podium when somebody came up with his notes, and he'd edit questions and said, you're not allowed to ask this one. Ask me this other one, but phrase it this way. And then he'd go back and wait for the guy to ask the question the right way.
Now, this was obviously your first. Was this your first DC Nation panel then? Obviously,
yes, this is my first DC Nation panel. It's the first time DC Nation has been to Seattle.
I like those panels.
Excited about. Oh yeah,
because they're a lot of fun. It's high energy. It's all about connecting with the fans and having a good time. I really think they put a lot of effort. The New York one, they had that. Have you seen the bulletin board? We talked about it on a couple episodes ago.
Yes.
They did that one in New York, and it was nice because it feels like when you go to a DC Nation panel that they're trying to make each panel. I've seen multiple ones now, and I never felt that two of them were the same. They really have gone out of their way to kind of like personalize it, make it exciting. You don't feel like you're like, okay, I heard this on their podcast, or okay, I've seen this before. It feels like that each time they go to a new city, they're trying to really drum up some fan excitement and get people talking after that particular convention. Like, I mean, look at the Brave and the Bold. We're just kind of geeking out over that one. That was something that, we didn't get that news in New York, and that's nice. It's fun to now talk about this particular one. So, what else? Go ahead.
Did you get about the announcement about DC Decisions in New York?
No, what was that? DC Decisions. What one was that one?
DC Decisions. This is actually going to be a political commentary book. It's a mini, and it's having the DC characters explore current events and the mood of the country and what it is to be part of the United States of America at this point in time and addressing the political climate of our country in the midst of the election.
So it's is this going to be focused on candidates, or is it just going to be focused on general political issues, or is it going to be like a combination?
I have no idea.
Okay.
It seemed a little weird to me, honestly, because I can't imagine, and maybe I'm wrong, and hopefully I am wrong, but it doesn't seem like something that, I don't want to know how Superman votes. It's something that seems, an individual election seems like something that's too placed in time. I mean, it's right now, and even a year down the road, it will be something I'm never going to pick up again because I don't care.
I think, though, where it might be interesting, if it's political issues, I think that there's certain characters that writers can naturally say, we've seen a lot of this, especially with Ollie Queen in his book.
Yes,
where you get
absolutely.
to see how he works so well in politics and in that political environment that you could make that more real world, where you could take real world issues right now and talk about those things through those characters' eyes. I think a writer or writers, depending on who's did they announce any creative teams on this one, or did they? Okay,
nope.
So, and they might be having a few writers work on this one. I think there would be some opportunities to really take certain characters and explore, I think, what we already know about them, but actually getting to see them responding to events of today. I'm with you, though, that there's certain characters you have to be very careful how you handle them with regards to taking a political stance. Like, you're right, Superman's one of those you want to universally believe is going to stand behind. And I will say this, though, even if Superman voted one way, you know that Superman would still support who's ever in that office, because that's kind of the nature of that character.
Yes.
See, I don't think I don't think Superman would actually vote in an election because he is not a U.S. citizen. He's never ever been really, technically, you look at it, a U.S. citizen. It's the whole Clark Kent, not born on the planet, I don't know if he's ever really become, if it's always been a fake thing.
Jim, you can be adopted and vote.
But did he ever, as a child, I thought, like, okay,
he is Clark Kent.
Yeah, but is Clark Kent how do they do that with the adoption? Is it a real thing, or do they kind of like sidetracked it? What's the current continuity on?
Well, he has to be on some level.
He's got a Social Security card, so he could work at the planet.
Yeah, he has to.
Okay.
Be. So I mean, he has to be able to vote on some level. Clark Kent would, not Superman himself.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't know with what current continuity is him. Is there actually in paper somewhere out there? Or is it just one of those things that they've kind of ignored?
I don't remember ever seeing him vote in a comic, if that's what you're asking.
Well, just
in Armageddon 2000, they established that he was an American citizen so he could run for president.
Oh, that's right.
But I don't know if that's in continuity.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I don't know.
Well, it goes back to what you were saying, though, back a couple episodes ago with the Truth, Justice, and the American Way.
Yeah.
I can't see him not. I actually would be disappointed to find out he didn't vote.
Yeah.
I would go the other route and say that I agree with you on the sense that I don't see Superman himself walking to the poll, but I can't see Clark Kent not doing it. If anything, Bruce, I could see Bruce Wayne being the one who'd be cynical enough not to vote out of the two.
And maybe those are the sort of the issues they're going to explore in this. I don't know.
I like the idea of, though, taking a look, though, because people are very passionate nowadays about a lot of political issues around the world. I mean, we're in an era where, we're looking at paying possibly $5 for gas prices this summer.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there are issues around the world right now. There's wars going on and things like that are very hot political topics that I could see heroes being very divided on as far as who's for the war, who's against the war, why. And those type of issues, I think, are very tricky to tackle in a comic book, but I think handled with the right writers, if that's the route they're going, it could be interesting. I'm curious about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll pick up at least the first one and see what it is. Yeah, because it makes me curious. I can see it done either very, very well or very, very badly.
Yeah, I don't know if there's going to be a middle. I don't think there's going to be a middle ground. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a spark for some conflict and controversy and massive internet chatter.
Well, you know what? Taking it another step further, I could see it being one that divides an audience, where you're going to see a lot of people that are passionately going to enjoy it, and a lot of people that are passionately going to be like, "What was the, what was the point?" I could see this being one of those type of books, depending on how it's handled. It could be one of those, but I mean, those are always fun too, because it's always interesting to see the debates that spin out of them. All right, what else came out at the panel? You had a great panel there.
Let's see. Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun. They talked briefly about some of the Chrono Crisis tie-ins. And they talked a little bit about Trinity, and that Trinity is also going to be a standalone comic. It's going to be one that you can read without having to pick up the regular titles of the three main characters. You can just read Trinity and not have to read anything else.
I like that because I think a lot of early on in Countdown, it was something you and I both commented on early on, and it got better as the series went on. But I remember the first initial issues, I remember Lightning Saga fit very awkwardly into Countdown when they were doing it. I understand why they put it in there, but some of those segments, they just didn't feel like they fit comfortably in there. As the series went on, they got better at taking events that fit into the DC universe, like the stuff with Salvation Run with Piper and Trickster. Instead of trying to fit Salvation Run in, what they did is they told the story from the perspective of Piper and Trickster, so it fit in more fluidly as the series went on. I think for Trinity, if they keep it kind of its own entity, I think it's going to be a much better read that I think people are going to get. I think it's going to have a larger audience base that I think are going to really enjoy it, because they don't feel like they have to be reading like 4 or 5 different books to kind of understand what's going on. So,
well, I thought I heard that this isn't going to be like a year in the life of the Trinity. It's going to be just like maybe a month in the life of the Trinity, broken out over a 52-week story arc. is I thought what I heard.
There's going to be a story. They said that it takes place before the events of things like Batman and Rip and stuff like that.
Right.
But there's going to be lasting effects that stem out of it. At least that's what they mentioned in New York. Did they expand any further on that, Kendra?
They didn't. They didn't. They moved on to Wonder Woman and the Manazons.
Was Gail Simone at the panel?
Yes, she was. She had a table
like
too
that
this year.
title.
Yeah, I met Gail Simone earlier in the day. She's actually awesome. So she signed some Wonder Woman for me.
It's what the Rise of the Olympian, I think, is the actual title.
Yes, but everyone on the panel referred to them as the Manazons.
I think it's going to be universal. I think that title is sticking now because too many people like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. For news, that was pretty much all the news. They went on to, because they were answering questions, and they went on to deal with some other things that people brought up. They talked about the weight on Action Comics and Amazon's attack. Why was it awful? They talked about why are there no online comics.
She was funny when she sent me the email. She goes, Sean, I think you're the only one who liked it. And I sent her back and I said, Jim did too. You did like it.
I did enjoy it, yeah.
It is funny. We were actually laughing. There's a thread on the forum. It's called Damn It, Norge. Because we noticed an interesting trend, and it's very funny. When somebody doesn't like something, or when something is like a kind of one of those comments where somebody's kind of saying, well, see, people didn't like this one, it always ends with a Norge. And when people like things, it's Jim. Which I think is funny because that's become my role. I like it. I think it's hysterical. So some of the listeners started a parody on the forum called Damn It, Norge, where they blame me for things.
I need to find that one. It must be on page 2.
So how did they respond? It's funny. What did they say about Amazon's attack? Because you're right. Universally, I mean, there's no two ways about it. You look around forums all over the place, our own forum and just around the net, a lot of people most people didn't really care for that series. We are a minority in that as far as really enjoying it. What was their response to that?
The response was, they came up with Amazon's attack. It was supposed to be one of the 5 miniseries to lead into Infinite Crisis.
Okay.
And it hit the chopping block because they decided it wasn't needed. And so they resurrected it, and it was out of place, and it was done by a different team, and the original vision of it wasn't what it was and wasn't what it could have been. It didn't fit where they put it. And if you think about it, Wonder Woman leading into Infinite Crisis and, the murder of Max Lord and all of this, having the Amazon's attack before that would have just added to her lack of credibility. And you can see how that would have played into Infinite Crisis.
It would have totally decimated her. I mean, she was already politically, she was decimated enough, but this would have also taken away the clout of her country. Not just her. She was, at that point in Ruka's book, it was very political, and she was, this representative of her country. She had her own, what's the word I'm looking for?
Embassy.
Embassy, yes, thank you. She had her own embassy. And that was the whole climate at that time. You're right, it would have been a lot more timely.
Yeah, and so it didn't get done, and like I said, they tried to put it in a different place, and it just never fit. It never hit the stride that it was supposed to, because it really had no real place where it was headed. Rucka was there. Rucka talked about it because he came up with Amazon's attack when he was on Wonder Woman. So, yeah, they said, it just didn't quite work.
I liked the concept a great deal of what they were doing. I got to admit, at this point right now, I'm kind of like, I was expecting more afterwards of like finding the Amazons, and this is going to be kind of like Amazons kind of all of a sudden popping up, like somebody comes across somebody and it turns out they're an Amazon. Kind of like what's going on over Marvel with the Skrulls. You're hanging out with somebody that turns out later they're an Amazon. Yeah, and somehow they're, I thought that the storyline for me that I thought was going to be interesting coming out of this is when and how are they going to be reawakened, and will they have established whole new lives and all of a sudden find out that they are in fact this whole other person, which to me is intriguing. You've built a life for yourself, because at this point it's been months for them at least since all this happened. So you figure these people have, in some level, either they firmly believe that they've got a different life that's already been in place, or they've established for themselves a life, and they've got no memory of being an Amazon, which we know that's a fact. And I think that would be intriguing to kind of follow that journey and see who turns out to be an Amazon and what it does to their life and what it does to the people maybe that they have surrounded themselves with, marriages, children, things. Do they have kids?
It'd be kind of
to what level have they been altered, and what does that mean for them now? That could be very intriguing storytelling. Could be. Yeah. I don't think we're gonna see.
I don't think they're gonna say Amazon's attack again for a while.
No, I don't see. That's just it. I don't think at this point. I don't think we're gonna see too much coming out of that because you're right. It wasn't very well received, and I just don't think that they're gonna go back. And I think we're gonna see a quick resolution of that.
I like that DC, though, is acknowledging that it didn't quite work for them, and they're acknowledging the errors. So that's kind of cool that they're not trying to cover it.
Like, no, it was great. What's wrong with you people?
They're really good. They did that with the Action Comics Annual as well. In New York, in New York, they were very upfront about it. Dan DiDio, explained why they made the artistic changes they did on Action Comics to get the book back on time and everything like that. But also why they chose to finish it with the same artist. That they have a lot of faith in the story and they're looking at some shelf life for the hardcover collection now. It's kind of like they already ticked off the monthly audience. Let's make sure not to make the same mistake for the the crowd that's waiting for the hardcover. Let's give them a complete volume. And it made sense to me. And I was glad that they didn't ignore it. They didn't make it seem like it was no big deal. He openly admitted this was a big goof up. I really respect that.
Yeah, and he talked to us about, how long are you willing to wait for your comics? The general consensus was, it depends on how good they are, number one, but, even no matter how good they are, we're not willing to wait forever. They need to be timely. We'll wait a month or two. You start hitting 3 or 4 months, and people's hands went down. We don't want to wait that long.
I think it also depends.
Too much of a gap.
Yeah, it also depends on the circumstances. I do like that they're more proactive now. That if there's health issues with somebody or things like that, which obviously,
yes, and that was one of the issues.
Hearts go out at that point. And there's been times where there's been creators who've had health issues that they've completely changed, like Dr. Fate. Look what happened with Dr. Fate. That was supposed to launch as an ongoing series, but then all of a sudden poor Steve Gerber, ran into health problems, and then, ultimately, I'm glad to see that his vision got to be
created.
And we got to actually see his concept come to life because, that's a nice legacy. That's, he got to recreate that character and do that. But that was a series I was waiting for, and my frustration with that not coming out was, as a fan, I wanted to read new Dr. Fate. But it was so great that they reached out and involved us and let us know what was going on because, you sit there and you look at that and you're like, okay, I get it. And that's, these people have lives and they're human and things happen. And I would rather have this.
And it is so easy to communicate with the fans now. I mean, you've
absolutely.
got online and you've got the communities, and it's so easy to just let us know what's going on instead of just, where's my comic book? Which I think they start out with not telling anybody because I don't know if they're hoping to get back on time. Because you have a month of where's my comic book, and then the information comes out.
And I think it's hard, too, as far as making a decision. Who do we blame? Where do we put the blame? How much of the blame do we tell? Do you want to say, hey, the problem is the art right now? Because, by the same token, there comes a point in time where, as fans now, because of the internet and forums, it's funny the amount of finger pointing from fans that go on immediately, where they point at the writer, they point at this person, they point at that person. They've got a history of this and the history of that. And it turns out sometimes to be one person from that run, who maybe was, just the project was too ambitious or things like that. I'm glad to see that they're switching out creative teams when necessary, though, as far as, if you need to switch the art, switch the art. If the writer's not working, switch the writer. Get the book to where it needs to be for the monthly fans, because I prefer my books monthly. I really do. The storytelling, I like to read it. It's serialized. I'm not against the trade market. I think it's great that you have multiple markets for comics because you need it nowadays. But there's definitely, the monthly crowd that's here, and that's our expectations.
Yeah. I find with a big, when Wonder Woman was so late, so often, it was a bi-monthly book. It couldn't come out on time. I would get my book, and I had no idea what was going on. You have to go back, pull out the previous book, find out, where were we? What was going on? And and I find that hard. That I can't remember for 3 months what I'm supposed to remember. I'm lucky I can remember it for 1 month.
And I had zero issue with it being announced initially as a bi-monthly book. It just wasn't.
It wasn't. Absolutely.
And I quite liked, I'll be honest with you, I've got the hardcover of that now, Because I've become a big Wonder Woman fan. You know, the Rucka run I thought was, you know, I'm glad that you mentioned that before as far as the political climate of that. I really enjoyed that run. And then when they relaunched the new series, I was enjoying her so much there. I enjoyed her appearance in Manhunter that I was ready for more Wonder Woman. When that run launched, I'm like, you know, I read Young Avengers by Heinberg. I really, really enjoyed that. So I was jazzed up for this. I figured, oh, this is going to be a great run. And I'm with you. It took me away from the storytelling that it was delayed. It's funny, though, reading the whole story together in the hardcover where you got to read it was actually a very good story. It's just that you're right. When you get taken out of that storytelling with the delay, it's kind of like you lose the pacing, you lose the momentum. Because there's, you know, at the end of a certain issue each month, or bi-monthly, whatever, there's a cliffhanger. And that cliffhanger is supposed to drum up excitement for the next event and build you into the next issue. It's written that way. It's paced that way. And when you lose some of that bang because of a lengthy delay, it's kind of sad because I think it's a story that is underrated, that would have, I think, had more more people would be talking positively about it if it had come out on time.
Yeah, I agree, because it was a good story. You know, when I finally got the annual that concluded the story, you know, I set it aside because I no longer cared, because I was reading, you know, Simone's Wonder Woman. I think I went back and read it eventually, but...
And it honestly was a very good ending. It was a fun story, and it's just timing-wise, it came out so much later, and we already knew what happened. Mm-hmm. With the events. It was a nice build-up. Did you like that one, Jim? Did you read that annual?
Yeah, I read it. And
did you like it?
To be honest, I remember reading it, but and I remember reading saying, oh, okay, that was good, but if you were to start quizzing me on the events that happened in the annual, I probably would miss over half of them.
It's an interesting point that you both say that, though, because... I'll be honest with you, a lot of you're hearing me, you know, just expressing a very different opinion on the whole thing. A lot of my enjoyment, I bought the hardcover because I like Terry Dodson's art. So I figured, okay, let me grab the hardcover, you know, for the artwork, and I'll have fun paging through it. I went through and I reread the story in the hardcover. I really enjoyed reading the whole thing together. So it's funny, you're both having the same experience here right now because of the fact that you guys picked up the monthly books. And you shouldn't have to pick up a collected edition to get the enjoyment of the book. I mean, I'm a firm believer in that. You know, you should be able to pick up, if you're buying it monthly, you should be able to get the same enjoyment that a person is getting collected. My enjoyment's coming from the fact, though, I got to read the whole story in one sitting, and it really read very well that way. I would encourage people, if you have the issues and the annual, take all those issues, put them together at some point, and read them together. Just because you have them and you put the monetary investment in it, get that enjoyment from it, because it really is a lot more fun of a story than I think it's given credit for. I'm just saying it for people. I'm a big believer in, if you put the money into the books, you should get as much bang out of it as possible, because comics aren't cheap.
No, really?
Yeah. But I would, just for your own enjoyment, because it really was. It's sad that unfortunately that got lost, and it will not go down as one of the better Wonder Woman stories, because I think that loss of time has soured people to it. I got off on a tangent there, didn't I?
You got off on a huge tangent. We're both just sitting back going, let him go.
Well. What else is new?
This is why you have a 4-hour podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but this is why people podcast, because they can't shut up. Like you said, some of the questions on the floor, is there other questions from the floor that kind of stood out for you?
The online comics question, because I just listened to whatever episode it was when you guys were talking about why are there no comic books online. And Didio was talking about that, and he said, quite simply, it is a collector's market. People want to hold the comic books in their hand. They don't want to read them online. They want to collect them and put them in bags and put them in boxes and have them forever. And their sales, unlike other magazine sales, have not been affected by the internet. Magazine sales are dropping because people can get things online that they want. That trend is not reflected in comic books, which makes sense to me, because I want my comic books in my hand.
I agree with that completely. I guess my thinking about online comics is not for the current comic market.
Yeah.
It's for new readers.
They are.
He's 100% correct. I guess a lot of times it's kind of the same problem I have with the argument as far as monthly versus trade.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're kind of the mentality that it has to be one or the other. It has to be digital or paper. It has to be monthly or trade. I'm of the market, no, let's get them out in as many different ways as possible for a new audience. I'm not thinking of current comic readers when I think of online comics or digital presentation. It's more of like, who's not reading now that should be? With the variety that's available in comics right now, I think there is an untapped market of people. I think the numbers for readership right now is disgusting because of how good the stuff is and how much variety is out there. So I guess that's where I totally agree with him. He's 100% dead on, but I think we're right now forgetting about a whole body of people that we could be appealing to, that are people that are going to the films, that are people that are watching the TV shows and miniseries and things like that. You're seeing more and more of Hollywood going to comics, and I think there's digital opportunities for that website to link to digital downloads of the original work that people can purchase in bulk and be able to read them on their computers or portable players. Not for us. We're already buying them in paper.
Well, I think one of the reasons he took this question so seriously is because of who asked it. The guy who asked it just came back from Iraq.
Oh, wow.
And he had family members shipping him comics, which was great, but then after his tour of duty, he had all these comics to get home, which was harder to, because he only has so much, weight that he's allowed to bring home with him. And he said, how can you make it easier for me to do what I do and still keep up with my comic books?
And I mean, I think there's a certain point to that, though. And I guess I'm of the mentality, too, that you can still collect something digitally.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to be a replacement necessarily for the die-hard fan. I'm always going to get paper comics. As long as they're publishing them, I'm going to get paper comics. Are there some books that I would consider buying digitally, maybe that I'm not getting now, if I had the opportunity to? Possibility. But I might be a minority as far as your die-hard comic fans, and that's okay. I'm not looking at me. To me, I don't think the kind of fan that I am is your target for a digital market anyway. It's a new person. Go ahead, Jim. You got
Here's with me and these digital. If they were to start offering right now all the DC titles in digital, if they were to give you a nice little discount, savings on it, there's a lot of DC titles that I'm currently getting monthly, that I currently have the floppies, that I would stop getting floppies and I would solely get on the digital. I'm getting these things because I like enjoying reading the story, but if I could wait till, especially a lot of the minis, a lot of these limited series, I probably would have picked up the digital on them so I can read the story, understand the story, enjoy the story, and then when the trade comes out, I'd pick up the trade. So it's, I don't know. I think I would probably get a mixture of some of my paper stuff digital, as well as plus additional stuff that I'm currently not getting, So it's, I think...
But again, I don't think... any of us, the three of us talking here right now, would not be the target market for that anyway. We would be people, if we picked up anything digitally, we'd be kind of like the bonus. It's kind of like, Brian Azzarello, when we were at a Vertigo panel. I don't remember where we were at, if it was Chicago or New York. He made a good point when he walked in there. He said, comic fans in this room are not the target audience of Vertigo. And what he was saying, he wasn't insulting anybody in the room. It didn't come off that way. What he was saying was, though, that Vertigo, one of the reasons why almost all the Vertigo stuff is collected in trade is because they are also targeting heavily the bookshelf market. Your bookstores, your Borders, your Barnes & Nobles, things like that. They're going for more of a mainstream audience with that. A different sort of crowd that they're targeting with that. And it's very successful for them. That is a very successful market. We as fans, are reading Vertigo books as well, but we're not. It's a different line than your DC Universe, for example. Their target for Vertigo is very different. Their overall audience has some bleed over from people who read things like the main DC Universe or other stuff from Marvel or from independent books and things like that. You're going to have that bleed over, but there's also a very different crowd that they're targeting with Vertigo. My thinking is the same way with this. That if they go to a digital route. And I'm talking about I'm not just talking about DC. I'm talking about comics in general. You're not targeting your current comic fans. And I will go as far as to say they're making a huge mistake if they do that. Because I'm at a point. It's funny you're talking about this right now. There's a lot of Vertigo stuff that I've been collecting in trade that I'm going back to monthly with because I want the floppies again. Because I'm getting into summer, and summer months for me are when I start really getting caught up on a lot of my backlogged reading, and I'm like, all right, I don't want to wait. So I fall into that category, and I would fall into there very quick. And once I start getting the floppies, he's right. I get in the collector mentality. I want all of them in floppies, and I want to see that nice stack looking there. And there's going to be things that I probably purchased in trade. That idiot that I am, I'm going to go and say, well, I kind of want the covers from the floppies because it's nice to look through and kind of see those all collected. And I'm the kind of moron that will go and do that, and it's fine. But I think with the digital thing, I still stand at the point that I think comic companies in general are missing the boat on a new audience. And I don't think digital's the only answer. I think the trade market has been wonderful in opening doors. It goes back to, like, in Japan, you can get comics in vending machines. I think comics are just not... I remember it was kids, we got them in drugstores. They were everywhere.
Grocery stores. We'd walk into the grocery store, and my mom would plunk me at the magazine rack, and she could do her shopping while I flipped through comics, and then I was allowed to buy a couple.
Go ahead.
We don't do that. I mean, my daughter has to come with me to a comic book store in order to pick up comic books.
And I think as long as we're limited to that the market's going to be limited to, your bookstores and your comic shops. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to see that expand. I would like to see a new audience come in. And does it mean a new medium possibly? Yeah. I think it means a lot of new mediums, though. I think that I'd like to see comics in general start thinking a little outside just the collectors that are currently collecting. Because I think that there are good books that are canceled. There are really good, solid books that maybe have lesser-known characters but are incredibly well-written. They have great art that I think could get a hardcore audience of people who perhaps aren't your traditional comic fan, who maybe can rally behind a character like that, if there was different ways to access that market. If you could do viral campaigns on the internet and people could then go and download them and check out an issue, then they can subscribe to that issue digitally and download it. I think you're going to get a different kind of collecting going on that doesn't fit us. We're not the people that you target with that. You already got us. And that's what I want to see, more people involved in this medium, because I do think we all get frustrated. How many times have you seen one of your favorite books canceled that is not the Trinity, or is not? And I'm a huge fan of the Trinity, but there's a lot of your lesser known characters that I think unfortunately get canceled that could have had a great readership. I think. I don't know. It's kind of
you're still upset about Hawkgirl, aren't you?
I am. Well, see, my personal thinking is Gray and Palmiotti would have never left Hawkman if I could have had a viral campaign going digitally. And I would have. I didn't go there, by the way, just for the record.
Dude, I know you well enough to know what exactly you were thinking. Well, while you're saying that, you're thinking, yeah, damn it, there should be Hawkman triumphant out there.
But everybody, you know what? You actually make an excellent point, though, because everybody's got books like that. And I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. Everybody's got that book that was a smaller book that had really cool supporting cast, that was very well written. They were great characters. Firestorm's another book. I greatly enjoyed Firestorm. I'm really sad that there's not a Firestorm book right now.
Adam, getting rid of Adam. Yeah. Gen 13, I think, is now on the chopping block. Okay. And so
I haven't heard that.
I thought I read somewhere that it's on the chopping block. That may just be a complete false rumor on my part. I will fully acknowledge. I don't remember where I read that, but I could have swore I read some. It wasn't our forums. It was a different forum that I was perusing through, and I saw someone saying about books being canceled, and they threw out man, I can't believe they're getting rid of Gen 13. I was like, what? And
I was sad with the Wildstorm. Go ahead. I was sad about Wildstorm in general because I think Wildstorm was. I really enjoyed the Worldstorm relaunch. And I'm still enjoying those books, and we're not seeing the same amount of titles coming out from them right now. It's unfortunate that things like The Authority never got finished, and Wildcats. I know they're going back to Wildcats. Morrison said they're going to go back and do that, but then there's another Wildcats series that was just solicited this month.
Yeah,
and I forget who's writing that one. I'm drawing a blank at the moment, but it looks real good on paper. And Neil Googe is doing the art, though, and that was the real draw for me, because I like Neil Googe. It's funny, like I talked about when Welcome Tranquility came out, for the first issue or two, I had trouble getting my head around his art. I love his art now, and I'm actually like, well, it's funny, Wildcats, I'm like, well, Neil Googe is on the art, all right, I'm there. And I've got to forget who, the writer's really, I think it's Christos Gage, I might be wrong.
Yes, you're right.
Okay. And I like Christos Gage's stuff over in Wildstorm, so, I mean, but I think it's too bad because a lot of those Wildstorm books were kind of playing outside of what we consider normal for superhero titles. And, like, Gen 13 is going to be a big loss if they're canceling that, because I really enjoyed that book a great deal. I've been enjoying that book. Wait, I'm talking about it like it's already canceled. We don't even know for sure if it's the case.
I could be completely... Yeah.
Unsubstantiated rumors.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Let's not bury the title when we could be wrong. So, what other questions came up out of there? It's interesting.
Let's see. A lot of questions about Ambush Bug and his new series. A lot of Ambush Bug love in Seattle. Don't know why, but there you go.
Have you read any Ambush Bug?
Not for a very long time. It was his guest appearance in 52, which is just funny. I think I did a one-shot back, in college. It was just very odd. I'm going to pick it up because Ambush Bug's Ambush Bug,
I think it's going to be great, though, because I'm glad to see new Ambush Bug, because it was funny when Jim and I talked about it on the show, I enjoyed a lot of the inside jokes because I actually read the material with the jokes in question. But the older books, if you haven't read everything that they're parodying, some of the jokes still held up very well, while other jokes, you're kind of like, huh? Because you didn't actually read the books to connect with what they're doing. It's going to be great to see the parodies that are tied right into today's comics.
Yeah, and I think it's for me, because when Ambush Bug was big, I was just getting back into comics. I'd kind of taken a break in junior high and high school and went to college and got back into it. And I didn't get a lot of the jokes. I mean, I got, the basic premise, but didn't get a lot of the jokes. So now I'm much more into comic books again, so it should be better. Also, apparently, Captain Carrot's going to be doing a guest spot in the next Zatanna miniseries. Because apparently he lives in her hat now.
Oh, did you guys read that?
I never read that. No.
You need to read it. You need to read it. It's good.
Okay.
Did you have it?
No, I don't think I didn't.
I'll give you the issues. I'll give you the issues.
Give him the issues. They're wonderful. Had a good time with that one.
If you look at it on the service, it looks like you're like, well, do I want to read this? It was great.
It was great.
Yeah, when I was looking at it, I was initially saying, no. I was like, it probably is going to be a good read, but I figured, and then I was thinking I'd wait till it came out in trade format maybe, and then it just...
Which it is.
But yeah, it did, but I just still did get it. There was never anyone saying, oh, you got to read this until like now.
This is one. My daughter pulled this comic book off the shelf and said, Mom, can I get it? And I said, absolutely. She never made it through the first book. She didn't get it. Yes, because it starts at the San Diego Comiccon. And she had, but I got all three of them. And read them, and they're just a hoot. Had a good time with those.
It's funny that you mentioned that too, because there are a lot of references to conventions and to things that it's really a nice love letter to fans who have been at cons or who have heard about cons or see, that's a great thing. Even if you've never been to a con nowadays with podcasts, you can actually listen to panels from cons and hear we're doing right now, just chatting about cons in general. But there were nods to creators, and there were nods to what it's like to have fans meeting creators, and everything was done in an animal format. So the comic creators they had animal parodies of themselves in there.
Oh, cool.
But they were done it was funny. Each placement was very appropriate to the creator, and there's a lot of personality and life to this one. It's a hard book to describe because on so many levels, it's really written to us, to diehard fans who are collectors.
This is not something you give to somebody who's not a comic book reader.
No, not at all. And so it is, if you are a collector and a diehard fan of comics and you didn't read this one, this book is written for you. It really is, on so many levels, written to the diehard comic. It's not a casual book. Like, I wouldn't give it to my wife and say, hey, this is your introduction to comics. She's going to be like, well, you want me to read what? It's not written for her. This is written for it's clearly for us, and it's The ending was very charming. And I could totally see, it's funny when you were saying where Captain Carrot lives now, the ending so totally leads to that opportunity that it's going to be a fun book. Neil Gray on the forum was also another one who started up a thread about how much he enjoyed that. And I kind of totally agree with him. It is, but definitely you need to read that because it's clearly it's hardcore, die hard. The fans that we're talking about that have got the long boxes with the collective books and things, this is that's who the book's written for.
Okay.
Yeah. Another tangent, but a good one.
What are the odds? Let's see. There's some other things that I just wrote down that are just vague phrases that don't make any sense.
Okay.
But things that they mentioned, Legion of Three Worlds. They're very excited about Legion of Three Worlds and how each of the legions that are being represented are different. Because you have in, Legion history, the different kind of manifestations of the Legion and what it has looked like. And so they are pulling from each one of these, eras of Legion. So each of the legions is unique. They are not, the same Legion 3 times, with unique characters that are unique to each one of the 3.
Well, you figure they were written in very different eras. So the political climate in the world... And I think the overall storytelling and the way books were written were very different in the 3 different eras that are represented. I mean, you see that today. The Legion that's currently being written in Shooter's book, the Wade book that went into Shooter's book, is very, very, very different than stuff that you would be reading in the 84 Legion, for example, when they did the Baxter run. Because it's just a different storytelling era, a different mindset from the characters. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and the question came up, does Karate Kid get to die for a 3rd time? And it is a real possibility.
Oh, jeez.
The writer loves killing him.
As long as I kill him off and not Nightwing. That's all that matters to me.
But we were rooting for him to live so long in Countdown. I don't want to see him die again.
Hold on.
3rd time's the charm.
Exactly. Let's go for the hat trick, man. Come on. Number 3.
People are sick. I like Val.
Hold on, for you bowlers out there, let's go for the turkey, man. Come on. Gobble, gobble, gobble. It's time.
Well, what they said in the panel is like, really? Super karate? And apparently Bouncing Boy is in Legion of Three Worlds, which is exciting.
Oh, Bouncing Boy.
Bouncing Boy. And my guess would be he would be up there for, stupid superpower kill-offs too. So,
do you have the Jim? Do you have the Showcase Legions? Did you get any of those?
No, I don't think I picked up that one. But it's one of those on my list to pick up.
I'm a fan of Bouncing Boy. Now wait, all right, we're gonna get on Super Karate, but we're okay with a kid that can turn into a big ball. What?
Nope. I think he's cannon fodder too. Honestly,
I want to see Superman Prime use him as a kickball. Personally.
Oh, how great would that be? All right, I'm the minority Karate Kid fan, but
there you go. I think that's it for the panel. We only had an hour with them, and so I think we got a whole lot in our hour. It was a lot of fun. This is a lot of fun.
I've always found that when I'm done with the DC Nation panel that I'm wanting more. Because they seem to be really having fun, and it's infectious.
Yeah.
And it is. They could go up there very simply and do a very direct regurgitation of just news, just throwing out stuff. Here's what's coming up. Let's do a slideshow and that type of thing. They really have gotten so much better. And I mean, going back to the ones that were going on back when 52 was going on, they've gotten so much better at making this a fun, fully interactive fan experience. Where I love the question section, and they don't really dodge, unless it's something that's going to ruin a storyline. They don't really dodge any question. Even the ones that are going to ruin a storyline, they always find a fun, clever way of deflecting that question. And
the deflection for ours is, we're going to announce that in San Diego. Like, dude, that's not fair. Yeah, we had a good time. I mean, my husband, like I said, who doesn't read comic books, had a good time. He had no idea what most of us were talking about, and he had a really good time. And that to me is a sign of, a well done panel. He went early so he could, save us seats while we were doing, real comic book stuff in the other room. So he stayed in for the whole thing and really enjoyed it and liked listening to him talk. And he said doesn't know anything about the Green Lantern Corps and Blackest Night or any of that stuff, but he enjoyed what was happening. So,
and there is a certain point to that, because you got to figure at a comic convention, okay, you're gonna have fans that are Marvel fans, that are DC fans, that are independent comic fans, from different categories, and even it's kind of unfair to, I think, at this stage, to pigeonhole independent comic fans into even one group, because there's so many different companies and so many different categories that could even be chopped into. But there's fans who I think at a convention would say, okay, I'm not doing anything right now, let me go check out the DC Nation panel. And that really is a good opportunity to not just get your diehard DC fans excited, but also to grab some new fans that maybe have never read a DC book, or maybe have only very casually maybe they had a favorite DC character, and they only read that character ever, and they've never really touched on anything else. That is your opportunity to really kind of get people drummed up and excited about maybe some titles they would never look at. So I'm glad to see that there's more of that. I think that's true of pretty much so all the convention panels I've been at. There's a lot of enthusiasm as far as doing fan outreach. And it's good because this really is a fan market right now. Mm-hmm. For a lot of the reasons we just talked about on here. And if we're not all talking about it, who's going to? Kendra, what do you, as long as kind of done talking about that panel, what are you reading right now that you're excited about? What's something from DC that you're kind of really glad that you're picking up?
I'm really enjoying Justice Society still. I got a miniseries, ages and ages ago, and never really got into the monthly. And when they did the relaunch, I got on board, and I am just loving Justice Society and the concept of the older heroes training the younger heroes. And now pulling in the Kingdom Come stuff is just really neat. I finally went out and bought the Kingdom Come trade. I'd gotten it from the library and decided I couldn't live without it. So pulling that in is just really interesting. And it's one of those ones I wait for, shuffle it to the top of the stack. It's like, oh.
The pacing on that's been absolutely wonderful. And the cliffhangers, none of them feel forced. There's always this one thing at the end that you're like, doggone it, why couldn't this have been double-sized?
Don't stop, I want more.
Yeah.
Let's see, I'm trying to think what I'm reading. Oh, the new Titans, the Titans series.
Oh, the Judd Winnick one.
Judd Winnick, yeah.
Yes, very excited, because, those are my Titans. Mm-hmm. When I started reading comic books, I was reading those Titans, and they were all older than me, which is no longer the case.
So it's interesting, though. It's like revisiting old friends. It is,
and I read, the Teen Titans, and I'm getting Teen Titans Year One. But when this title was announced, that was the one that made me excited, because these are my Titans.
And there's room for that.
I've only got the one issue in my hand, but I'm very excited.
I liked the first issue a great deal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was really one of those that there was a lot of concern about that book. If you looked around the internet in general, a lot of people were thinking that one wasn't going to be so hot. And I was kind of like, well, I don't know. With Green Arrow and Black Canary and how well Winnick's been doing in general, I don't get that. He's been doing a really good job with these characters. So I was really anticipating that title, and I thought the first issue delivered. I'm really excited to see where that series goes.
Yep. And Green Arrow, Black Canary is another one that I am just loving. I've always been a Black Canary fan. When we were kids and we were playing, Super Friends, and we'd run out of girls, I'd always pick Black Canary, and nobody knew who she was. So I've always loved Black Canary. I love it that she's, leading the Justice League, but this title is just fabulous.
And that was the one, it is a team book, and I still firmly feel that. It's not Green Arrow's book, and that was what my big concern was going to be, that these were all going to be sidekicks to Ollie, and that we lose some of the charm of what's made Black Canary such a cool character. Mm-hmm. And it's quite the opposite. She is such... Because for years we read Black Canary storytelling where it was always like she latched onto Ollie, and you always knew Ollie was somehow going to screw her over, and you would sit there and groan. I mean, and there was a certain point to that, because that was part of Ollie's character, He was the playboy who did that kind of thing. But it's been great since he's had this kind of evolution and this kind of... He grew up. Which actually is kind of interesting with him because you feel like... Talk about character progression. Ollie's had a ton of character progression. And to see that continue and how their relationship is that much stronger and how she is an equal partner, that to me is the key.
Well, there was a sense for a while there. It's like, he kept, messing up and she kept taking him back. And what's wrong with you, chick? I mean, move on. He is not who you need him to be. And he is now. He is absolutely who she needs him to be now, which is neat when you look at, from a storytelling point of view and character development.
I liked that he felt the need to prove that to her, though. That the way that the story developed over time, it wasn't something where it was just like all of a sudden, hey, I'm new Ollie, come be with me. We didn't see that. We saw this really long progression to that, where, and he even addressed that when he proposed to her. And the way that all went down, I was like, this is really moving. This is really well done. Because we got to not only see him tell us that, but you could go back in the storytelling and see he did all this to step it up for her. He did all this to show her the type of man he could be. And actually, what I liked about that was for years the problem with that relationship was because she was such a dunce with him, it diminished her as a character.
It did.
And for him now to turn around and say, no, she's up here. She's on this pedestal. We've seen it in Birds of Prey. We've seen the kind of character she is. He had to look at her and say, in order to get her, in order to be with her, I need to step my game up. I need to prove I am worthy of that. I need to change to be a better man because she is so much better than I deserve. And he's right. And that was the cool thing about the whole journey is because I think in many ways it was another part of throughout the universe kind of a reawakening of who Black Canary is, what her role is, and how important a character she is, that she would be someone that a man, in order to be worthy to be considered a partner of hers, really would need to prove that he can respect her and be on an equal ground with her and be something different somehow. It's a cool story.
It is. It's a great story. And in the new comic, she is so much his anchor, because he's dealing with all this trauma with Connor, and she's the one holding him steady. We can do this. This is going to be okay. We can do this. This is going to happen. And letting him, experience the grief that he's experiencing, but still being there for him, because there is that connection now.
Here,
so I'm loving that one.
Let me pose a question to the two of you. Do you think the book would be better, the same, or worse if they called it Black Canary and Green Arrow? Or do you think,
I think it's irrelevant.
I do too.
That's what I like about it.
Yeah.
I think it's totally irrelevant.
Yeah.
I would be very comfortable if they called the book Black Canary. I would. And Ollie was the supporting character. Except, and I take that back. The way it's written right now, what I like so much, even when you see Mia, she feels more, and I'm not diminishing her in any way by saying this, she feels more like the sidekick. The two of them are the main players. And her role is extremely important, but it's the two of them are the main players, and she's playing off of them. It's very clear that they're running the show and that she is, very much the Robin role. Although I don't want to diminish Tim Drake by saying that because, he's kind of proven himself to be something more as well. But the two of them are clearly the stars of the book, the main players, and you almost need both of their titles on the book. But I don't know, you could have called the book something else other than Green Arrow and Black Canary and given it like a team name or something like that. And I would have been very comfortable with that kind of a title as well.
Yeah, the title doesn't matter. I mean, Green Arrow first, Black Canary first, it doesn't matter. It's because the way they're written, it is obviously their book. It is not one of them that also the other one happens to be in. It is their book together.
You know what? I don't know if you guys agree with this. I will say this. It was an appropriate relaunch because I think the book did need a new title name because of the change in tone and the change in focus. This is not the same title that ended with Green Arrow 75. This is a brand new book with a brand new tone and a brand new feel, and the cast and the way that they interact with each other is different. So I do agree with the relaunch and rebranding because of the shift.
I wasn't reading Green Arrow. I started picking it up when they put Black Canary on the front.
Okay. That says something in itself.
Yeah.
So that was a draw for you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I love the story.
Oh yeah,
really
I'm digging it. And even when we got the top bullets submissions, everybody always put in Green Arrow and Green Arrow Black Canary. People didn't just say the Green Arrow title. Mm-hmm. You know, it's so I was just wondering if that would make a difference to out there, or even to people listening. If that would make a difference for you. Just curious.
No, I can't. To me, I don't care what they call it as long as they keep publishing it. It's a fun book. One of the funny things, and it's one of the things I wanted to make sure we talked about real quickly before we wrap this up. You were one of our biggest advocates for getting more books available for all ages. How are you feeling about the renewed focus? Are you liking the way that they're handling it? Because I remember it was actually a lot of your emails and a lot of your forum comments that got us talking about it on the show. How are you? Are you picking up any of the Johnny DC titles? Are you liking the way that they're handling it?
we get a bunch of them. Let's see, my daughter's 9 now, and we get the Batman Strikes, and we get the Legion, and we get Tiny Titans and Super Friends and Teen Titans Go. Let's see, is that all of them? We get some other things, too, from other companies. And
they've got that Supergirl miniseries that's going to be coming out, which is going to be an all-ages Supergirl title. And it's going to be a mini.
Then we will pick it up. We were desperate to find her a Supergirl T-shirt at the con and couldn't find one that was actually, designed for a girl. They had adult extra larges and no little girl T-shirt.
How crazy is that?
But I know. It's just weird.
You would think that would be a cool branding in general for girls.
Yeah.
I mean, even if whether they're comic readers or not, it just would be a cool-looking shirt. But
well, and they have things, and it's the S in pink. She has some jammies that have the S in pink, and she wanted something with Supergirl on it. So, and we couldn't find anything.
They announced in New York that they're continuing to work on expanding the line, and that the line's been getting, when Tiny Titans was released, the line's getting a lot of positive response, and they're doing the Magic of Shazam book, and they're going to do the Supergirl mini they announced in New York was they're doing it was either 6 or 8 issues. I don't remember how many, but it's going to be it's going to be an all-ages focused Supergirl book. It's going to have Streaky the Cat in it and all that, and kind of taking that character concept, but branding it for everybody. And I'm really, really enjoying the output.
My issue at the moment is, she's 9 years old, and you've got these Johnny DC comics, and they're geared for younger readers, and she's not going to be a younger reader that much longer. Because she reads, proud mom moment. She reads a year ahead of herself in school. I mean, and there's a disconnect between Johnny DC and, the main DCU. When I was her age, I was reading main DCU titles that were kid appropriate. And there's this jump from Johnny DC, which is, all kids all the time, to the main universe, and there's no connection between the two. And I would like to see some of those titles be things, and that's something I'm always doing. I'm always reading through my books going, is this something I could hand my daughter? And if not, when? And how much back information is she going to need when she decides she wants to read this? And how those things play together.
You know what's honestly going to drive that, though? Sales numbers. And I'm being honest. I'm glad to see the focus on that brand, and I hope the Johnny DC brand continues to do well, because if they see that brand continuing to generate a new audience and do more of that, they're going to want to continue that audience on into the main universe, and they're going to keep finding ways to bridge that audience. So I think that's one of the reasons why I'm encouraged by this right now. I agree completely with what you're saying. There is a disconnect right now, but I think the important thing is that they're looking at that brand. They're obviously aggressive about that brand right now, and I'm hoping that this pays off dividends. I'm hoping to see trades of this stuff. I'm hoping to see them at book fairs, because I think if you start showing sales numbers for these things and we start seeing new readers in there, and this is another example of where I think Johnny DC should be looking a little outside the box too, in the sense that how do we get Johnny DC titles into the hands of kids who are not, sons or daughters of comic fans? What are we going to do to target them? Because these are books right now that I think are doing well because parents are doing that. I want to see them at book fairs. That is a good way to do it. Book fairs at schools. I don't see any Johnny DC stuff there.
No. We actually have a bunch of them in our school library because I hooked our librarian up with the owner of my comic book shop, who donated a whole bunch of back issues to our school library. So we have a fairly impressive selection of, and not just DC, but all age comics from several different publishers in our school library. And at Free Comic Book Day, I picked up some things. I took Tiny Titans into the library because there was a free one.
Nice.
Diary of a Wimpy Kid and stuff like Bone, which has been collected by Scholastic, because they offer library-bound volumes. My librarian's been really open to grabbing those things and putting them in the library. Anything that's at a book fair, and I don't care about publisher. If I see a comic book that's at the book fair that's collected, I grab it automatically. Digests, trades, whatever they have there, because my kids pass them around like crazy, and they get wrecked. In a good way. Yeah. Because they're so beat up because they're constantly in play. The Bone stuff, I bought a 1-volume edition of Bone, which is like a Bible-sized volume. I don't know if you've ever seen that, Jim. It's huge. Mine is so beat up and ripped up in the room, but the kids are taping it together and still reading it with the color version being out because the color version hasn't caught up yet to everything, and that has everything. So the kids that are reading the color volumes are like, wait a minute, that's got the rest of the story? So they're all like follow, and it's so cool to see that. I think too many times we try to legitimize comics in the classrooms as something like, how do we fit it into the classroom instruction? In my eyes, I think that's an important component of it, sure, but no, what I like seeing, and this is true of any book, the cool part about books like Harry Potter was not where do you fit it into classroom instruction. It got kids excited about reading. The cool thing about seeing comics in the classroom is seeing kids get excited about paging through them, talking about them, sharing them. That increases kids' comprehension in books. That creates kids...
And kids who can't pick up Harry Potter because it is a tome can pick up Bone.
Right. And they get the idea of sequential storytelling that goes into writing and visual characters that they can picture with their imagination and draw themselves and, get into all that. This is what comics is all about, and that is the single most important reason to have them in the classroom.
Well, and sales-wise, we have the first 4 Bone trades, the little ones, on my daughter's shelf because the librarian picked them up from Scholastic, and she was on a waiting list and couldn't get the first issue. So she's like, please, 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 I can't get it from the library. Can I buy this? So we bought it for her. She read it. I read it. We got the next one, and, and so it goes.
I've had kids in the middle of class ask me to go to the library to grab that. And that's my one thing. I want to, a year from now, be able to send them down to the library to get Tiny Titans. So that's what I want out of Johnny DC, and that's why there's a certain point to this. Why are we talking about all these titles that are outside of DC? Well, to me, if we're going to talk about Johnny DC, it's like, what does this line need to do in order to grow and to pick up new readers? Because that's what I want from stuff like this. It's let's get a new audience in here, new kids, not just ones whose parents are comic fans. Why does it have to be just that? Let's get to some kids. I want to see new readers in comics. That's the way to do it. Make these things available in libraries. Make these things available at book fairs. I will buy every single one of them for my classroom because you know what ends up happening? The kids then buy them.
Or convince us at Barnes & Noble to buy them. Please, 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 Mom.
I have a wonderful book called Yets that I picked up. It's an independent title. It's another, cute character-driven story. Specifically, it's an all-ages book. I picked it up at Pittsburgh Comic-Con. It's traded, which is great for my classroom. There was 2 volumes of it. I grabbed it, and my kids are passing that around the classroom. They love this stuff. And to me, it does my heart good to see, to have lunch and be able to talk with the kids about Bone. I mean, you know how fun that is for me? I'm getting paid for this.
my other pet peeve is, the superhero movies. Because I can't take my daughter to most of the superhero movies. They're PG-13. And that's crazy. I mean, how are you going to get kids to pick up a comic book if a movie and television are their first entry? Because that's how she got into Titans. She loved the Titans cartoon. And I said, well, I think I saw a book at my comic book shop. Would you like me to pick it up for you? And now she's getting 7 titles.
I'm glad to see, because I know part of the DC cartoon problem has honestly been a lot of the cartoons that were more age appropriate, because of the fact that they were on channels that all of a sudden wanted their own brand of cartoons. Unfortunately, some really great cartoons for DC, like Teen Titans Go, for example. There's no excuse why that cartoon.
Awesome cartoon.
Yeah, but there's no reason why that cartoon shouldn't still have new episodes. But that all changed because of they wanted to brand different cartoons. Justice League Unlimited was another great example.
Oh, that was a fabulous one too. We just rented all of those and watched them, and she loved them.
I'm glad to see Batman Strikes. That's similar. That's being, but Brave and the Bold is coming out as a cartoon, which I am really. That's another one that I'm hoping leads to a DC spin-off comic, and hopefully that's one that'll stick around, because how can you not make an unlimited running series off of, and I think the focus of the whole thing is going to be Batman teaming up with other heroes, which is fine. But I mean,
which was what the original Brave and Bold was.
Right. And I mean, tell me that wouldn't work great in a cartoon format, though, because you've got an unlimited resource of characters you can pull from to put in that cartoon and keep it fresh, keep it exciting. And you can bring back characters that were in the previous season, and you've really got an unlimited mix of storytelling you can tell from that.
Well, and that's why Justice League Unlimited worked, is because you had all those characters. I think I noticed it when it was running on Cartoon Network. I saw a cartoon that had Hawk and Dove. It's like, Hawk and Dove! Geek out kind of moment. So I turned it on. It's like, this is a good show.
But I think what's going to end up happening, and why I made that point was, I think if we start seeing more successful all-ages comic material on television and in media, the comics are doing well, things like that, we're going to see more like your animated superhero movies. You're going to see more stuff that's all ages. If that market, starts to look, it's all about money. And if people can start to see these are viable markets, I think you're going to see multi-branding of Batman, for example. You're going to see a Batman movie like we're kind of seeing with The Dark Knight, where it's clearly geared towards our age group, and then you're going to see animated branding of Batman that's clearly, and I don't have a problem with that, I just want to see both. So that way, like you're saying, as a parent, you can do that. I think eventually we're going to get to a point where, though, if the dollars show that the markets can converge, we might see that, where we're going to see something that's maybe all ages for everybody. I don't know, though. I think comics now have kind of, in their own way, got multiple tiers of audiences. And I don't know what the easy answer is, unfortunately, to kind of bring all of them together at some point.
And there are certain characters, like Batman. I can see Batman in the movies being darker. I don't have a problem with that. That's, not something I mind not being able to take my daughter to. But something like Superman, the Big Blue Boy Scout is PG-13. Excuse me?
And
why?
You got a good point there. There's certain characters that why do you need to do that, and couldn't we deliver it a little bit differently? I do think, though, that Batman is one of those characters that. Wait, hold on one second.
Hello.
We're recording right now.
No, but
what?
Something went down.
What went down?
And you guys need to come out here and we need to take a break.
What is it?
No.
Right, we're doing an interview right now.
Oh, well then I'll tell you how long you...
We're going to be just a few more minutes.
Okay, then take a break and you both got to hear this.
Is it bad, or?
Yeah.
Is bad, wait, bad how so?
Well, you'll find out. Something bad went down.
Where? What kind of build-up is that?
It's your cliffhanger.
That's a huge
Talk about a
cliffhanger.
cliffhanger. All right. Where were we? We're on branding, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I think Batman, though, is a character that has done very well with multiple branding. When we look at the various animated versions of Batman, he's done very well. Like Batman Strikes, that cartoon, my kids at school enjoy that cartoon. And I like that. I'm enjoying the movies and that presentation of Batman, but I'm geeking out over at the more all ages friendly Batman that's presented in Batman Strikes as well, and in the Batman cartoon. I like that version as well. He's a character that I think you can easily do in multiple versions. I agree with you with Superman. I'm not sure why we need a Superman that can be anything but all ages friendly in the film version. Do you?
Yeah.
I don't know, Jim. Go ahead. I mean, you might have a different take on that. Go ahead.
Well, I understand, but personally, I liked the fact that they were PG-13, that they weren't written for kids. There was a mature, kind of subplot going along with the story that, it's more reflection of modern society. On one hand, I would like to see, I could see something that's all age appropriate, something for people to bring their kids to, something. But on the other hand, I'm like, I want an adult movie that the main character is Superman. I want an adult movie where the main character is Batman. I want an adult movie where the main character is the Justice League.
Okay.
Did you like Fantastic Four?
There were moments that I liked.
That was a PG movie.
I liked both Fantastic Four movies. I understand what you're
I
saying.
did too.
You're saying,
and my daughter loves them, and she can watch them.
Let me ask you this, Jim. And I guess kind of building off what you're saying, Kendra, let's go another route. Do you think Fantastic Four would have been a better movie if it was PG-13? And I think this is what she's getting at here. She's making a good point. Do you think the rating would have made a difference?
No. The story is the story, and yeah, they probably could have, spiced some stuff up, but it wouldn't have changed really my opinion one way or the other. Both those movies, I was like, okay, yeah, there were some moments I thought it was kind of funny, kind of neat. The first time Ben said "clobber in time," in the second one when they were switching powers back and forth, some funny bits there.
Silver Surfer was cool.
The Silver Surfer character was kind of cool, but yeah, I don't know.
I don't think the rating would have mattered.
Yeah.
Kendra's making a really good point here. I don't think the rating would have mattered one way or another. I think. I will say this, and kind of building off of where Kendra's going with this, I think with a Superman character, if you're going to be releasing a Superman movie, is there any reason why the studios aren't looking at releasing an all-ages Superman at the same time? Like an animated version or something. See, I'm a big fan of animation as a way to reach a younger audience. I think fans... I think families, typically when they look at an animated Superman, they would expect to see an animated Superman that their kids can watch and that they can enjoy with their kids. The Superman series that came out that was the same animation studios that did the Batman animated series was a great animated series and would be a fun one to watch with kids. And it's the same group as the Justice League ones, and I mean I'm sure that there were different artists and writers in certain extent, but I mean it was part of that same
same Dini-verse, the Dini-verse,
yeah, the Tim-verse, whatever you want to call it. Those were to me just wonderful examples of what's great about the character concepts in those comics. That was all ages friendly, and I would like to see I'd like to see balance. I'd like to see balance where if there's that PG-13 movie that's out there, that there is something that families can enjoy.
Yeah.
I don't have kids right now, but if I had kids, I would love to be able to show an all-ages Superman in my classroom.
And here's the thing, as I say this, if they came out with an all-ages Superman, I'd still go see it. Mm-hmm. And I probably still would enjoy it. It just, I don't know, it's... On one hand, I'm like, yeah, I understand this, and I feel for you. I think, yeah, there should be something that we could take a family to it. But on the other hand, there's the greedy side of me that's like, I want a gritty adult story. Forget the little kids. I don't have kids. I'm going to be greedy for a second. I want an adult show. I want an adult movie. I want an adult comic. I want something that is for me that I will enjoy. And forget about these people with children. Completely selfish, I fully admit that. But there's just sometimes that I want to hold on to that.
I think, though, you're hitting on something as to why we're seeing a Johnny DC line that's growing. Why we're seeing your Brave and the Bold cartoons. Because you can't, as a company, they can't ignore the future. And these kids are the future of comics. And I want this hobby around when my teeth are falling out. Because these characters, I've read this my entire life. And I'm pushing 40 now, and I want to continue reading this for another 40 years. And because of that, you can't ignore the kids. And you need to look at them as an audience that need to be cultivated into comics and need to get excited about them and have the experiences that we had as kids growing up with your Super Friends and with shows like that. And, those were the things that drew us into comics. The 60s Batman show was very family-friendly. Okay, it was a spoof. Forget about that. But, there was a Spider-Man 60s cartoon. There was a Super Friends. Filmation did a whole bunch of Justice League stuff that was very cool. It's those type of cartoons and all-ages material and things like that that built a foundation that we're still following today. We still like these characters today because of that. And those things were outside of the continuity, so there's a certain point to your Johnny DC. Are they in the same continuity we're reading right now? No. But do they need to be? No, not as long as they're well-written, well-drawn, and they have strong character concepts that people can get their head around. I agree that there needs to be a transition piece in place at a certain point so these kids will want to continue reading the more adult books, the books that are the teenage adult audience that are out there today. I'm not sure what that's going to look like, but I think that the numbers are going to drive that because, the companies are going to have to say, we've got this audience here that's growing. How do we get them over there?
If you've got these little kids, they're not going to be 6 and 7 forever. They're going to get older. They're going to want more than what they're getting out of Johnny DC, and they'll find it. And if it's not in DC, they'll find it someplace else. And
you want them to continue on, and it's a long-term approach. I think we're going to, Kendra, I think that's something we're going to see. I think I'm excited about the Johnny DC line growing to more characters and not just being cartoon-based. Not because I think it's great that there's the cartoon spin-offs. I think it's a great way for kids to start reading Johnny DC that are watching the cartoons and then seeing ads for different Johnny DC books that they can kind of say, oh, let me try Tiny Titans, or let me try this Supergirl miniseries, or let me try this. That's great, and I like that. There should be a mix between the mass media cartoons and original titles, because I think it's a line that should not be pigeonholed to just being, and I think for a while it was. It was pigeonholed to just being cartoon spin-offs. Now, that's not knocking the wonderful material that was coming out of the creative teams that were working on that. I don't mean it that way. But I think it's also, there's a point to saying, let's really show that this line's cartoon spin-offs. There's unique original works. And let's let creators really kind of go crazy with these concepts for all ages in a way that I'm picking up Tiny Titans right now, not because I'm trying, honestly, I picked it up at first, mainly because people like Kendra were posting in our forums, I want to see more all-ages stuff. DC responded. They announced some big titles that they're releasing, like Super Friends, Tiny Titans, the Shazam book. I'm continuing to pick up Tiny Titans, not because I'm trying to support a book that's for kids. I'm picking up because it's darn good, and it's fun. And that, to me, is, I think if you expand the line and you have different titles that are all ages, you're going to hit both audiences. You're going to see sales numbers increase, and they're going to put in transition pieces to get some of those people over to there. And I think that's what we.
Yeah.
Wow, it's a heavy topic.
Yeah.
I mean, we could go on, and I mean that's something I think.
Oh yeah. Well, and there were a lot of kids at Emerald City. There were a lot of kids with parents at Emerald City. They had a kid play area where they had artists. Here's how you draw Yoda. They had a guy doing balloon Spider-Man. I mean, their kids are starting to be, a group to be taken seriously, because while they might be coming along with their parents, eventually they're going to be making their own decisions.
Let me ask you this: When are you going to pick up that Shazam book when it comes out? The Magic of Shazam?
I don't know. It depends on if she wants it or not.
Okay. If you do, let me know. Because if you decide to pick it up and you want to come on, I would love to hear, and if not that one, the Supergirl book. Either or, let me know.
Yeah, we'll definitely be getting the Supergirl book. She's crazy for Supergirl.
For any of those, you got an open invite. I would love to have someone come on to talk about the parent experience with their child about some of these Johnny DC titles. So it would be great to pick one of those and just kind of say, kind of the new release and kind of talk about that book. So if you want to come back on and join us for either the Shazam one or for the Supergirl book, and I agree with you, let's pick the one that, she's excited about, and we can talk about your experience that you had with her and enjoying that book, intermixed with talking about what makes the book so great. And I think that would be kind of a fun, so if you're interested, we'd love to have you back for that as well.
No problem.
Because I think that's an interesting.
That'd be kind of cool.
Found a little soapbox.
Yeah.
Well, but I think it's an interesting perspective difference that I don't think we can present. No, not I don't think we can present. I can present the teacher perspective. You can present the selfish.
You're selfish adult.
It's all about me.
Exactly.
I am teasing you. But you can present it from the standpoint of, hey, I'm the comic fan that's just picking it up for me, and you can present the parent perspective. I think it would be an interesting kind of discussion to have very different motivations walking into the book.
Hey, I held back, man. I didn't go into the fact that at restaurants I want a no children zone. Forget the no smoking. I want a zone where there are no children around me.
You're one of those, are you?
You're like the Scrooge of the podcast.
It's not. Hold on. I got nothing against kids. I like kids. You've seen me with little children.
You
I
just
play
like
with
them
them. I have fun.
far away?
Exactly. There's certain times when I'm sitting down eating a nice meal or eating any meal, I don't want little running around, screaming, running into the back of my chair or whatnot. I just want to sit down and enjoy my meal. Maybe have a conversation with the people I'm sitting at the table. I don't want somebody else's, little monster ruining my experience.
Now, see, and that's not a sign of a bad child. That's the sign of a bad parent. You should have a no bad parenting section.
Bingo.
My child does not get up and run around and scream in restaurants.
I didn't say no bad child. I want to just, I just want to be able to enjoy myself. Now, granted, I agree 100% with you that it is a factor of the parents, not the child, but you can't really have how do you judge whether they're a good parent or a bad parent off of the open? Well, you got in seating, you got less than 10 seconds. So you can't say, well, you can sit in the good parenting section. You have to sit in bed. So that's why you set it down. So it's a child section or a no child section. It's easier to breaking it down that way.
I see, and I'm of the mind that I totally agree with Kendra. I'd like a bad parent forehead stamp. Because I love kids.
Really big one.
I love kids, and I totally agree. And I know you're saying it from this. I know what your point is that you're making there, and you're saying it joking around. But I totally get the point you're making. But you could totally staple that on somebody's head, and I would love that section because it's. I think that's part of the problem with our society nowadays is we're pointing at the kids. And she's 100%. It's not the kids. It never is. It's the adults that mess everything up.
What was the line from the movie Parenthood? You need a license to drive a car. You need a license to fish. But any idiot can become a parent. So, yeah, maybe we need to start actually having licenses issued to have children. You got to prove that you'll be a good parent.
I would love.
Ooh, that's scary.
I would love to see you apply for one. After your little rants today.
Hey, I'd make a great parent, man.
Automatic veto.
Can you imagine his psych test for that? Wow. Whatnot, full of controversy. Oh, this was fun, Kendra. Thank you so much for your time today. Actually, I didn't expect us to even go this long as we were going on, but I wanted to talk to you about the all-ages material just because you really were one of the people that were spearheading on the forums to talk about all-ages material and it's important, and I didn't want to end off our discussion here without getting a chance to kind of delve into your thoughts on the state of things right now, because since you started those threads and since you were chatting about that on the forum, things have changed. I mean, we've seen some growth. There's been some progress. Is it where we want it to be? No, but we're seeing some unique material being published now, and I'm hoping that continues.
What can I say? I'm a trendsetter.
There you go. But I think you're a voice that is not alone. I think there's a lot of people that are feeling the exact same way. And when you see threads start to pop up, they pop up because there's usually a school of thought that's out there that's not being addressed. And I do think that nowadays I want to see comics grow as a market. For a lot of the reasons that I've ranted about on here, not just all ages material. I think there's books that are canceled and things. I think it goes back to what I said. I think that I'd like to see comic companies look beyond the collector scope of the traditional collector. You got to take care of the traditional collector. I'm that person, so you got to take care of me. For the selfish reasons you're mentioning, Jim, you're right. And I'm just as selfish in that end. I want my books. So I agree with you on that. But I guess I'm also looking at the scope outside of me, because if we don't look at that, there's going to come a point where this market is not going to have a large enough audience to sustain the kind of quality choice that we have today. And I'm glad to see the trends increasing of reaching newer audiences. I just want to see that continue. I want to see that explode. I want to see 10 years from now, we're having a completely different discussion. There's an insane amount of people that are reading comics in a way that they've never been read before. And they're back on newsstands, they're back on grocery stores, they're in vending machines, you can download them digitally. There's way too many ways to get comics, is the way it should be. That's just kind of it. And I'll get off that soapbox for now. But Kendra, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. It was fun.
And like I said, open invite if you want to come back for. I would love to get a parent perspective on some of these new Johnny DC releases. So if you come across something and you're like, boy, I would love to talk about this, just shoot me an email and let's do that, because I think it would be interesting to have. Just from this conversation alone, we've got 3 very different perspectives, and I think that would be fun though to discuss the comic from those different viewpoints. I think we would reach our listening audience in a different way, and I think it would make for a unique discussion. So you've got an open invite. Just
okay, I will.
All right.
Thanks for having me on. It was fun.
Jim, we want to remind everyone that we're still supporting the Hero Initiative. For more information on the Hero Initiative, visit www.heroinitiative.org or call 310-909-7809. Also want to remind you that if you go to ragingbullets.com, there's a handy-dandy link right on the website. Feel free to donate, even if it's just the cost of a comic book. That all adds up. It helps over time, and consider helping out some of the creators from yesterday who could use your help today. And I want to remind everyone we've got a T-shirt still. Medium and large are still available. If anybody wants them, please PM me at Dr. Norge on the forums, or, of course, ragingbullets@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to set aside a shirt for you. They're only $10. All proceeds go to the Hero Initiative. Our sponsors for this episode, of course, are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Showcase presents Superman Volume 4 with Action Comics 293 to 310. Superman 157 to 167, written by Jerry Siegel, Edmund Hamilton, Leo Dorfman and others, art by Kurt Swan, George Klein, Al Plastino and others, cover by Swan and Klein. Regularly $16.99, 40% off, you got $10.19. The Interconnected Superman and Action Comics stories by Jeff Johns and James Robinson. That's going to be Action Comics 867. And Superman 678. You still have a chance to pre-order those through DCBService.com. Regular price is $2.99. Your price is only $179 at a 40% off discount. You can't beat that.
Yeah, it's just an amazing deal that you just got to go.
And those stories feature Brainiac, and of course they're going to also feature Atlas.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious what's going on with.
The cover looked fantastic.
Well, who is he? Is he the Atlas? Is it?
Looks like it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's going to be kind of a curious one to read for that one. I want to remind everyone that whatever your shipping preferences, bag and boarding preferences, DCB Service accommodates your collecting needs. Don't forget our In-Stock Trades Book of the Month, which is going to be on Sunday. That's going to be Matt Kramer, Darth Kramer from the forums, and the Shades Journal podcast joining us for Legion of the Superheroes and Eye for an Eye. 1984 series, issues 1 through 6 are collected in that volume. It's regularly $17.99, only $11.33 at InStockTrades.com. Remember, if you order over $50 on the site, so go ahead and grab a bunch of trades, free shipping. So not only are you getting the discounts, but you get free shipping if you do that, and that's where you get the biggest bang for your buck if you go ahead and do that. Our June In-Stock Trades Book of the Month is going to be Seven Soldiers Volume 2. July one is going to be Uncle Sam and the Freedom Fighters. So definitely jump on board those. And it's the series of Uncle Sam and the Freedom Fighters that directly followed Battle for Bloodhaven. I want to also remind everyone about the Kirby 50 Years of the King of Comics hardcover that's out from Tomorrow's Publishing. If you haven't had a chance to get anything that's been published by Tomorrow's Publishing, the great thing about this book is it collects the Jack Kirby Collector, which is put together really just for die-hard Kirby fans. And I consider myself becoming one of them now. A year ago at this time, I wasn't very interested in Kirby. I respected and appreciated his contributions and his place in comics history, but it was work that just didn't click with me for whatever reason. I started reading this Fourth World stuff, and I want to go back and reread everything from Kirby that I've read in the past, because I have a funny feeling I'm going to have a very different impression of it all, because I get him now. And I think there comes a point where you get somebody and you want to read all that material and just kind of get that. Anyway, this book has 50 best unused pieces of art from Kirby, 50 best character designs, profiles and commentary by the 50 most important influenced people by Kirby's work. To wrap it up, there's going to be a 50-page gallery of Kirby's powerful raw pencil art, and there's a deluxe color section of photos, finished art, and there's so much more in this book. I'm not doing it justice. It's regularly $34.95. The in-stock trades price is $27.96, and this is one of those books that I see being a hardcover that I will have on my shelf. I'll pull it out regularly as reference material to look at just for pleasure. I will read whole sections of it, then put it down, come back to it. It's one of those books that's going to have a lot of shelf life for you. I'll see myself rereading it again, letting people borrow it. So it's a good book. Anybody who's into comic history and that type of thing, I think this is a book for you, and you're definitely going to want to check that out. InStockTrades.com is your source for your collected edition needs. Thank you for supporting us. DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. And next week, as we mentioned, actually not next week, it's in a few days. On Sunday, we are going to be releasing episode 118, which features Darth Kramer, Matt Kramer from the Forum, and the Shades Journal podcast joining us, as we mentioned, for our In-Stock Trades Book of the Month, which is going to be, of course, Legion of Superheroes, An Eye for an Eye. And that's a meaty conversation.
Yeah, that was a fun conversation.
We had to actually do that in 2 recordings.
Yeah.
Because it's very dense material. And we're going to have some listener comments on that episode as well, that we've got some from the forum and some from emails that I've gotten on that particular book. So we'll get that as part of our discussion as well and really kind of delve into that and enjoy that. And we will see you on Sunday.
Bye.
Just real quick, just tell us who you are and what you've really been enjoying in comics right now. What is like a title that's grabbing you every month?
Right now, as far as DC, The Death of the New Gods. Big Jim Starlin fan. Cannot wait to see the finale to that. And I just wanted to say that enjoyed Raging Bullets as much as hearing it, and I hope you guys continued success.
Why don't you give us a shout out with your name, too?
Robert Barnett.
Okay. It's a pleasure to meet you, and thank you for supporting us in our show. So it's great to have you here.
Thank you very much. Hope to hear more from you.
Definitely.
All right.
Pleasure to meet you. Go ahead.
My name is Chris Kazicki from Massachusetts. I think the best part of the Comic-Con was just conversation comics with Dan Dino just this morning. Just a bunch of us, we all just talked about comics, nothing else. We just talked about what we love in comic books, what we don't like, what was our first comic, what was like the craziest thing we ever saw. It was just great. We just talked about, Dan talked about how he was a kid, that he was missing a Hulk book, and he got on the bus, and he bought the book, and he came back, and the bus was going, he had no money for school to get back to school, so he had to walk over there. It was just a good time.
That's awesome. I've heard that is one of their favorite panels, actually, because they put that in the back of the DC Comics and that DC Nation thing. They were saying this is going to be a regular thing they're going to be doing now as a way for themselves just to get the enjoyment and to enjoy it with fans. So that's great that you got to enjoy that. What about comics that you're reading right now? What's something that's standing out for you that you're saying, wow, I'm really enjoying reading this at the moment?
Oh, God, there's so many. I have to say right now, Green Arrow, Black Canary. I mean,
what is it about Green Arrow, Black Canary that's making you come back to read it every time?
The storytelling, it's funny, but also has a really good heart to it. It's a great family story. I mean, the issue where Green Arrow is just moping around and Black Canary said something to him and he gave me my bone. The day when he did that, that was awesome.
That ending scene was just absolutely priceless when he was sitting there. I was like, yeah! It was one of those moments.
Like, oh my God! And it was like the oh my God moment where you yell and scream. I was like, what's going on? Nothing, reading the comic book, that's all. That's a great part. And JSA, oh man, just this huge book, and it has all my favorite old characters. I mean, you got the Alan Scott, you got the Flash, you got Superman from Kingdom Come, and you got those great covers by Alex Ross. It's just really good stories. And probably the best book I ever read, I have to say, Action Comics Legion of Superhero Stories. Hands down, one of the greatest Superman stories ever right now.
And I don't know if you saw at the panel, but they're saying that's setting up the next 2.5 years of material with Jeff Johns and James Robinson, where Action Comics and Superman are now going to be interconnecting. So now I'm really excited to see what those two guys are going to do with Superman.
I also like, I just went to the Grant Morrison Final Crisis panel, and he really got into the Crisis, like, this is basically like, it's going to start, he's going to say it's going to start from the ground level, or it's going to start at the beginning of time, and it's going to be like, then the street crime started, and things just keep going better, bigger, and bigger, and that's how it goes into the cosmics. So it's going to start right from the bottom and build stuff up. So he said it was really interesting the way, talking about it. How everybody has this, right now everybody's had this eerie feeling, like, the world's going to end and all that, and he's really playing into that thing right now.
That's awesome. I'm looking so forward to Final Crisis. Jim and I are actually looking to try and finish up our countdown coverage as quickly as possible, because when DC Zero and Final Crisis hit, we want to get those on the show right away, because I'm so excited to see what he's going to do with this.
Yeah. I mean, you got all the Legions coming back. You have somebody, I guess he said right in the first issue, a major thing happens in the first issue. Like somebody really... And
issue 3, he announced that Frankenstein from Seven Soldiers is going to be in it. So it looks like he's pulling from all different kinds of threads for this story.
He also said he's pulling from his Justice League stories. World War III, there's a thread from there, and there's another thread from somewhere where he talks about how the Earth will become the fifth world. That all ties in. So he said since the beginning, since he started DC, he's been leaving little threads to this, and this is finally going to end everything up in this series.
It's great. This sounds like it's kind of his love letter to his superhero comics that he's been doing all along. And he said afterwards he's pulling back and just doing Batman. So I'm really excited to see how this all culminates, because I'm always excited when I hear that threads have been building since a writer has started. And I'm excited that he has actually been building this for so long.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, just the way he was talking about it. I mean, he's just said, you know, since I got there, I've been having this, I finally got it down. And he goes, after that, I'm just going to do Batman. Just like rethink the whole super thing with Batman again. But he did say that the rest of the piece doesn't really play a piece in it until near the last 2 issues tie in with the Crisis. So, yeah, that book, I just can't wait. It's just one of them.
Thanks a lot for listening to the show, and thanks for stopping by the table. We really appreciate it.
No problem. I love you guys. So, listen again, all right?
Oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah, I'm Omar. I'm from the Fixers Hideout. If the feds looking for me, I'm Juan. Give us the website. www.thefixer.com. I'm on MySpace, /TheFixers Hideout, and /TheFixer. Can you tell us something that you're reading right now that you're really enjoying? What's something every month that's grabbing you and making you say, I gotta read this?
2 things. Titans, Salvation Run.
What is it about Titans that's making you come back?
Because I like the group dynamic of Nightwing, Beast Boy, Raven. I like that dynamic. I like those Titans. I like the other Titans too, but this one's good. Even though that Rose thing when they invaded the Titans Tower and she kicked all their asses, awesome.
I would definitely the action sequences. The art's been pretty steady, you know, even when they've changed artists, they've stayed pretty consistent.
The art is cheesecake, so women, don't look at it. But guys, you love it. Coriander naked. That's all I got to say.
You mentioned Salvation Run. What is it about Salvation Run? It's been a mini-series that you've been really enjoying.
Okay, look. First off, it's an idea long overdue. Come on. How many times these villains got to kill and rob and steal? Didn't half these guys kill Flash? Put him on a planet? I can't believe the Justice League think this is wrong. This is like, but they're afraid of losing their jobs. That's the problem. But the Joker, Lex Luthor throwdown, that was worth the price of admission alone. I mean, I like when they portray Lex Luthor as not some wimp. He's like, what's his name in Shaft? Batman Begins. What's his name? No, the guy who's playing Batman in Batman.
Oh, Christian Bale.
Christian Bale in Shaft, when he went into jail, they thought he was some rich white boy, right. And he tore the hell out of that guy.
Right.
That's how Lex Luthor should be, and really intelligent too.
Right.
But the whole, what's it, Vandal Savage? Oh, come on.
Right. One of the things I really liked about it too is the different philosophies between the Joker and Luthor, and how you wouldn't think at first that the Joker would have a lot of people that would follow him over Luthor, but the reasonings why people were following him were so well done, and I actually understood it, because he's crazy, and for them to actually go and follow the Joker was one of the things I'm like, oh yeah, all right, I get this. This makes a whole lot of sense. Great writing.
But wouldn't you follow the guy, the only guy who can give Batman a hard time?
You know, that is a good point. Well, I'd also be afraid that if I didn't follow him, he'd shoot me.
That's it. There is that. Exactly. Even though I think, but pound for pound, Lex Luthor should have killed him. So I'm like, why are they holding him back? You know Lex Luthor's nuts. They didn't hold him back in Smallville. I mean, wow, they didn't hold him back in Smallville.
You know how I took that, though? I took that as Luthor was trying to figure out who was loyal to him and who was kind of wishy-washy on the whole thing.
Well, Well, he's smarter, so I guess he might want to keep everybody alive. But Joker's just an obstacle. You know, if I was on the planet, I'd be like, Joker, come here, blip, blip, blip. 2 shots through the dome, that's it. We're not even getting into it right now. Because he's too volatile, he's too unpredictable.
And there were certain people, though, that Luthor knew he needed to have for his plans. Other than that, I also think Luthor didn't care otherwise. I mean, as long as he had the people that he wanted for his goals to try and get off that planet, he was good to go.
Yeah, that's why you should betray him. And always remember with him, you know, he's not a psychotic. He's just a genius.
Calculating.
Yeah, he's evil. Period.
Evil. He's just evil.
Yeah, because I'm evil. I like that one. Yeah, well, no.
Very good. But I mean, everybody knows about the Joker and the fact that if you're his henchman, there's a good chance that you won't make it out of that mission alive. So that's something you should think about. And I'd go with Luthor just because of that. You know, all right, with Luthor, you say, all right, he might cut you loose because it's part of his plan. Joker is like, oh, I stubbed my toe. Bang, you're dead, gone. It's like, what's the reasoning behind that? At least you can see it coming possibly with Luthor. But the Joker, whatever happens, happens.
As a matter of fact, when Devin Grace was writing Catwoman, she had this combination between henchmen. Who would you rather work for? And they were running down the line.
Absolutely.
Not Joker, no. How about, Catwoman was the best one to work for. You always get paid. That was a good conversation. That's for you young timers.
Well, and you know what? If you get paid, you're going to stick with them. If you know the Joker's going to probably kill you and you're not going to walk out with any scratch, I'm not following the dude.
Which is why he gets all his henchmen from Arkham Asylum. Who else is going to follow him? He can't walk into a bar and say, you want to go to a job? You're like, no. But they're going to be afraid to say no.
Yeah, especially if he approaches you, you're going to say yes just on general principle. But he's a tricky guy because on a whim, he'll shoot you for no reason.
Now, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
All right, Salvation One used to be the issue, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Parademons coming out. Right. That's Salvation Run. Another comic book, another Apocalypse connection. 52, well, Darkseid was there, but it's getting stronger now. Orion comes out. All of a sudden, everything's beginning to connect here. You think all this has to do with this Final Crisis thing?
I think so. I really think so. Especially from the way Morrison's talking, it sounds like that he's been building stuff like this since JLA. Since some of his early work, he's been building these threads and hoping that they will lead to something like that. That doesn't necessarily mean that he had it planned out at that time that he was going to do Final Crisis, but he had an idea on where he would like his storytelling to eventually go, and that led to the story that wound up being Final Crisis.
Well, they're saying, or they're putting feelers out like the Lex issue, #1, supposed to wow us. Put it all together, okay? I mean, and I'll buy a countdown, there's Grant Morrison. I'll buy his name on the underwear. So,
anything with Grant Morrison, I'm on board because you know he's going to take you someplace that you never expected, and you're going to have to really think about what is really going on here. And everything that's on the surface doesn't necessarily mean that you have the whole story.
Oh, yeah. But, like, I read his Doom Patrol completely. So, I know where it could go, and his JLA and Doom Patrol were way apart, but not too much. He did get a little weird in JLA. He did it. And he elevated the White Martians. So,
life's good. Well, thank you very much for being a supporter of the show. Thanks for coming by and chatting with us.
We love the show. Raging Bullets.
Well, it's people like you that, seriously, they make this show worth doing. So really appreciate it, man. I am so glad that I got to meet you, buddy. And it's always good to see you. So
I thought I got to finally see the face with the voice. There you go. Now I know what you look like. I'm turning my radio off now. Oh my God! He'll fight your children.
You see now why we don't do a video podcast.
Same reason. All right, guys. Oh yeah.
Oh, you don't have to. You got it. You got to at least give a shout out on the show. We're here with a very good friend, Pat Loika, who I haven't seen in a long time. So it's great to see you as always, Pat. Pat, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling a lot better, thank you. It's been a rough weekend.
We gave you a shout on the show way back because of all the things you were going through at the time, and we really missed you, and it's glad to see you back again. Can you tell us a little bit what you're up to at the moment?
Right now, I'm in the middle of a few things. I have a short story coming in an Image anthology called Outlaw Territory coming in September. It should be in previews in the next month or so. I also have a bunch of books that are available for free at wowio.com. You can download the entire Path to Armageddon series, and we're gonna have more stuff. Like, we have a bunch of dialogue books there, like from our studio, like Scar Tissue and The Future's End, and there's tons of other stuff. Like, you can go to our website at .our Studios, and we'll give you more info on those books. They're free, by the way. Free.
Is the Dial R Studios, is it dialrstudios.com?
That's correct.
Okay. I want to make sure our listeners get a chance to check out your work. I'm a huge fan of Scar Tissue, huge fan of Path to Armageddon, because I got to meet both you and David at just cons, and I'm both works that I've enjoyed personally. So,
yeah, Dave is a really good guy. One of the finest artists I've ever met, and every time I see that guy, it just inspires me to do better with work. So he actually has another book coming out this July, and I think he's announced it already. It's called The Guns of Shadow Valley. It's a Western. So I saw his artwork for that book. I'm like, man, I gotta try to top that. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad to see you, and I'm glad to see you looking so good, buddy, and that you look like you're feeling better. And we'll definitely be supporting your work and checking it out. And I'll put a link up to your website. So,
yeah, thanks, Sean. Hopefully I'll see you in the other shows this year. Are you going to Chicago?
I'm shooting for it. It all depends. I gotta check out with the wife.
Well, I hope it works out for you, man. I'm gonna be in a few other shows too, so I'll hopefully run into you in one of them.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So go ahead, just give us your name. Anything you want to shout out real quick?
Okay. This is Mike Gordon, and I'm from New Legend Productions, and I love Raging Bullets. That's a good show, and I love DC, and the New York Con's been awesome.
Do you have a website for New Legend Productions?
We do. It's newlegendproductions.com. Yep.
What's a book right now that's really grabbing you every month? Something that you're just saying, I cannot be without this book, and why?
Actually, ironically enough, or oddly enough, right now, the one book that's rising to the top of the stack, which I can't believe, is Batman and the Outsiders. Chuck Dixon is doing a phenomenal job writing that book. It's had a huge surprise the last issue or so, and I really enjoy the art. The art team has been fabulous on that book. So
the art team really shocked me on that book. When I first started paging through the first issue, I was like, oh my gosh, this is gorgeous art. It's beautiful. The characters are well detailed. It has almost like a painted effect to it, the way the coloring scheme works out. I really like the overall look and layout of that book.
Yeah, it's fabulous, and it's all action. It's non-stop action from cover to cover, and that's what Chuck Dixon always promises, and I'm glad he's just letting loose on this book.
I like it too because he's really got a good grasp of what makes a good underground Batman team work. This is definitely underground Batman. He's not afraid to get his hands dirty because he knows it's necessary in these situations. It's a great book.
Yes, and the team that he's got right now, you can always tell each team has like little character moments, so it actually gives a spotlight to each member of the team. I'm glad to see Batgirl in a good action role again. I miss her solo book very much, and I'm glad she's on the side of the angels again. You know, she's on the side of good. So I do appreciate that too.
I always liked Cassandra Cain, and when they turned her bad, I was kind of like, oh, don't do this to Cassandra. I wanted to see that journey back. I wanted to see her back in this place. I think she was a great addition to the Batman family. I'm glad to see her back where she belongs.
Right, and I like Batgirl, and I like I don't know how long Green Arrow's going to be on the team, but he's a welcome addition as well. Him and Rex have a good back and forth going, and I also like Grayson Thunder, working on them too has been really good.
I am so glad that Ollie isn't afraid to push buttons in this book. They're really grabbing that characterization right. He's adding a lot to the dynamic. I'm hoping he sticks around longer, especially because of the fact that he's not really on a team right now other than this, and his wife is, so why not?
True, yeah. I mean, it would be interesting to see that dynamic too, with his wife being on the legitimate team, whereas Ollie's on the underground team. So it's pretty interesting.
And it actually adds a little realism to me because when she's off with the JLA, he's with the Outsiders. It fits why we see them together so much in their book. Obviously, those stories take place then in between their times when they're with their various teams, and I like that kind of dynamic.
I also like the fact that the whole story, at least the first arc, has been dealing with sort of the aftermath of Batman and the OMAX. But yet it's not a direct, you don't have to read all those other titles to enjoy the book. I mean, it's really just an action piece and it tells you everything you need to know going in.
Good writers know how to do that. They know how to include you in a particular segment without making you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm clueless on what's going on at the moment. But then again, there's something there for the fans who have read all that stuff, and they're like, okay, this is great. We're getting something that fits in continuity. This is a book that has a nice flow from things that have happened before.
Yeah, it's definitely one I recommend. Like I said, when it comes to in that week, it rises right to the top.
Well, it's great to see you as always, and thanks for stopping by, and thanks for listening to the show. We really appreciate it.
Oh, I love the show. I wouldn't dream of missing it. So thank you guys for putting it together.
Anytime, that's cool. Real quick, just identify yourself first, contact information and stuff like that, because you'll be doing the t-shirts and we'll go talk about it.
This is Joseph Luciano here at New York Comic Con, Legion Star on the forums, and
contact information is myspace.com/LegionStar.
You put together the T-shirts for us for the convention, which I really, really appreciate. We got $50 so far, which is all going to the Hero Initiative, which I thought was very generous of you to put the shirts together for the purpose of donating them to the show, which is really, really awesome. If you haven't seen the shirts, if you go to RagingBullets.com or check out the forum, you're going to see it. I'll actually have the topic pinned to the top part of the forum. Check out the shirts and see how cool they look. It's the property of Raging Bullets. It's the Raging Bulleteer shirt. It's really, really awesome. And it's a proud bulleteer of the Raging Bullets podcast. This logo is the one that Ziggo made that was on the forum, and it made for an awesome shirt. You made one for Jim and myself, which we both donated to the Hero Initiative for, and we got some listeners who picked them up. I think this is going to be really an awesome thing. Go to the website, check them out, and make sure to pick up your shirt. Thanks for doing this, though. And we're going to be doing a Starman segment with you soon, which Wicked Inclination. Why did you choose Starman for that segment?
Well, primarily, I only read Marvel up until the age of 16, especially X-Men, Uncanny X-Men, just mostly X books. And when I was 16, I walked into my neighborhood library looking for some stuff to read, and they had Starman Wicked Inclination in there, and I picked it up and I fell in love, and I've been reading DC ever since.
So that was the trade paperback that introduced you to Starman?
To DC in a whole, actually.
Oh, that's cool. Very cool. What's something you're reading right now that every month is bringing you back? Something that you're just saying, wow, this is the book I can't do without?
It's got to be Green Lantern Corps.
And what is it about the Green Lantern Corps book that's making you say, that is the book for me?
Just the relationships between the Corps team members and just like how it's partnered, like Buddy Cop. And just the weird teaming ups, like the partners, like Isamat and his name escapes me right now, but one is a Thanagarian and one is a Ranian, and they're enemies for life, but they're partners in the Green Lantern Corps, and just how they interact with each other in their relationships.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because a lot of these aliens, because of the fact that their worlds are warring, or they have cultural differences or religious differences, a lot of those things make for interesting dynamics of the characters, because we see them evolve and grow from learning from each other, and learning that they're now, because they're part of the Corps, they're part of a different group that they have to have a philosophy of teamwork, a philosophy of working together, a philosophy of being a family in the Corps, which I think is really, really awesome about them. It's not just about the characters we know, it's about these new characters. They're just as much the stars.
Right, the Corps in itself is one big family, and religion and race just doesn't matter when you join the Corps.
It actually plays very well into the real world today, because we have those issues every time. And actually, it's one of those books that there's a great message in there showing us all kind of a new way to look past those differences, look past those things and all work together, and look what kind of goals these people are accomplishing when they do that. It's a very cool story with a very cool message.
Right, yeah. You just summed it up. I have nothing else to say.
It's cool. Thank you again for putting together the shirts, because I think it was really cool of you. We're going to actually be in the future setting something up on the website. You're going to be doing some shirts for the show.
Yeah, I plan to, and take submissions from people who want to, like maybe a contest to see what the next design is going to be, or just like a voting, like a thread on the forums where people can vote to what they want to see next. And then we'll talk about donating a percentage of those proceeds also to Hero.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, because I definitely, I don't want to make anything off the shirts. I think it's a great idea. That way your costs are covered and things like that, and then we can get proceeds going to Hero. It's a great way to help out, and you get a shirt out of the deal, which in the case of what you're talking about with contests, things like that, very personalized and very fun way to go about doing this.
Right, because it just gets all the listeners in to participate, and it makes everybody feel better that we're all contributing a little bit of what we have towards Hero and the creators who started it all in the beginning.
We have shirts left still from the New York Comic-Con. Please check out RagingBullets.com. I will have a section of the website set up so you can see what these shirts look like. I'll put up there what sizes we have left. The shirts are $10 a piece. All of the proceeds from those shirts, Joseph donated them. All the proceeds from the shirts go directly to Hero. So all of the $10 that you spend, it's not going to us, it's going to Hero Initiative. So consider picking up a shirt and supporting Raging Bullets and the Hero Initiative.
Don't forget to download every week the new episode.
Thanks a lot, man. Why don't you tell me what your name is?
Brendan.
Brendan, who is your favorite superhero?
Nightwing.
What do you like about Nightwing?
That he had the same thing as Robin, the twister that goes and knocks stuff out of his hand.
Very cool. Can you say Raging Bullets?
Raging Bullets.
All right. It was good talking to you.